Chapter 3969. Thank you. Lin Yi nodded and went in the direction the man pointed out. After a while, Lin Yi found a ruin at the foot of the mountain. Judging from the wreckage, it should be the wooden house the man mentioned. Lin Yi couldn't help but be taken aback. If this really was the king of trash's place, then this guy wasn't just in trouble, he was in trouble. Even his place was burned down. Just how big of a grudge was this guy? After all, it couldn't be that the Rag King was bored and burned the house to relieve his boredom, right? Fortunately, the Rag King was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. Unless he was killed, the fire in the wooden house should not hurt him. However, if he could not find the Rag King, it would be difficult for Lin Yi. With his identity as Second Lin, even if he got rid of the threat of Meng Jueguang, he could not show up too blatantly. If he could not find the Rag King in a short time, he would have to return without any achievement. Just as Lin Yi was hesitating whether he should stay here or not, three figures rushed over from behind. They were still quite a distance away, but they had already used their skills to attack Lin Yi without saying a word. Lin Yi was shocked. He thought his identity had been exposed. It would not be good news for him to make a scene in such a place. However, this was Blue Cloud Pavilion's territory after all. If someone was killed, the situation would be out of control and there would be endless trouble. Without thinking too much, Lin Yi dodged the attack with the butterfly micro-steps and said coldly, "Who are you? What do you want?" "Humph, what else? Of course, we are here to get even with you. How dare you steal from us? You don't even know how to write the word death. Last time, we only burned your wooden house. You got off lightly. Today, I will teach you a lesson." The leader sneered. However, when he saw Lin Yi's face clearly, he suddenly stopped talking. You are not the Rag King?" Lin Yi glanced at him. "What do you think?" The three of them could not help but look at each other. However, after realizing that they had mistaken him for someone else, they did not stop. Instead, they argued, even if he's not the Trash King, he must be the Trash King's accomplice. We're doing the will of heaven a favor by taking care of him. On behalf of the will of heaven? Heh, what an infuriating fellow. Lin Yi frowned. Then, the aura around his body suddenly surged, and the fiery fist intent enveloped all directions, as if the god of fire had appeared. As a powerhouse, there was no need for him to be overly patient with such ignorant fools. If he felt that they were too noisy, he could just knock them down with a single move. The three of them were only at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. In Lin Yi's eyes, they could be said to be vulnerable. In just one move, the three of them had all fallen under Lin Yi's understated 24 forms of frenzy fist. Each of them was charred black and battered. If it was not for Lin Yi's deliberate mercy, the three of them would have been burned to ashes. Not even a corpse would be left. Blue Cloud Pavilion is really weak. It's called a waste shelter. Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. The three of them were the inner disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Looking at their arrogant looks, he thought that they would have some strength. He did not expect them to be so vulnerable. It really made him speechless. After a long while, the three of them who were lucky enough to keep their lives finally recovered from the shock. After looking at Lin Yi from afar, they turned around and ran away while screaming as if they had seen a ghost. If the three of them had to describe their feelings at the moment, it could only be described as wanting to cry but having no tears. They were obviously here to settle accounts with the Trash King who did not even know how to fight. In the end, they inexplicably kicked an iron plate. How could they reason with this thing? Looking at this ruthless person, he was probably from Soaring Sky Pavilion, right? Thinking of this, the three of them thought that they were lucky not to be crippled. Lin Yi smiled disdainfully and let the three of them run away in embarrassment. He did not have the intention to kill them. Otherwise, if he had the intention, these three ignorant guys would have long been dead. They have already run away. Can you come out now? Lin Yi suddenly said to a rock in the ruins. This guy hid so well that even he did not notice him at first. However, when he was affected by the fist intent of the frenzy fist just now, there was clearly movement behind him. After a long while, there was still no movement behind the rock. Not even a weak breath could be felt. Logically, with Lin Yi's keen perception, this distance could not escape his eyes and ears at all. It was impossible that he could not even detect the breath. If it were others, they might think that it was an illusion just now, but Lin Yi was quite sure. He smiled slightly and said, "If you don't come out, then don't blame me for being rude and giving you another punch." After that, Lin Yi condensed the fiery fist intent again. There was finally movement behind the rock. Wait, I'm coming out." A disheveled figure immediately jumped out of the ruins. His clothes had been burned to tatters, and his face was scorched black. At first glance, he looked like an African refugee. Before Lin Yi said anything, the man hurriedly nodded and bowed and said, "Brother, I really didn't mean to steal your spiritual beast materials. You have already thrown them away. At most, I picked them up and reused them. How can it be considered as stealing?" Lin Yi was stunned, and then he could not help but laugh. He might not be able to recognize him just by looking at his strange appearance, but from his voice, he obviously knew that this person was the king of rags he was looking for. "King of rags, why don't you think about it carefully and see if you really stole my spiritual beast materials?" Lin Yi simply did not point it out. He raised his eyebrows and joked with him. This really can't be considered as stealing. You have eyes but failed to see and threw away good things as trash. In the end, when I picked them up, you insist that I stole them and want me to pay for spiritual jades. Don't you think I'm wronged?" The king of rags did not even dare to look at Lin Yi in the eye. He just kept saying with a crying face, "Don't you feel wronged? Why don't you tell me what kind of trash you've been picking up? Maybe you've made a mistake too." Lin Yi said playfully. Chapter 3970. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. "Black toad tail, fox bear bone, wolf spider fur, it sounds like you've picked up quite a few things. I wonder if you still remember the front claws and whip tail of the nine-tailed cloud leopard?" Nine-tailed cloud leopard? This guy's body is full of treasures. Who would throw away his things like trash? Is there something wrong with his head? Wait, did you say nine-tailed cloud leopard? The king of junk mumbled subconsciously. When he took a closer look at Lin Yi, he was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. He was so excited that he stuttered, "You? Who are you?" "The second brother Lin." "Hee, you finally recognize me. I thought you're ready to turn your back on me after such a long time." Lin Yi smiled faintly. "You flatter me. I've been waiting for you for the past few months. How could I turn my back on you?" The king of junk was overjoyed. For a person like him who valued forging as his life, it was rare for Lin Yi to promise him that he could handle a high-end material like the nine-tailed cloud leopard. This was something that he had always dreamed of. He was excited every day when he thought about it. For the past few months, the king of junk had been making various preparations for this. The reason why he had gone out to collect so many materials from spiritual beasts was also because of this consideration. Even the king of junk had once suspected that Lin Yi had forgotten about it. After all, he called himself a forger, but he'd never succeeded in crafting any decent weapons. He didn't think that he had any persuasiveness, or he wouldn't have gotten the reputation of being the king of junk. It was only natural that he'd be forgotten by people. If it wasn't for Lin Yi mentioning the nine-tailed cloud leopard, the king of junk would never have linked this person's identity to Lin Yi. He would have thought that this person was here to make trouble for him, just like the other three people. Lin Yi couldn't help but lament at the sight of the king of junk's ecstatic expression. This king of junk really had it tough. Putting everything else aside, he was still obsessed with the path of smithing despite being in such a sorry state. At the very least, it proved that his passion for forging was unparalleled. Just based on this point alone, Lin Yi felt that he had found the right person. Regardless of whether it was dead or alive, as long as one put their heart into it, everything in the world would have spirituality. For a person like the tattered king who could fully devote his attention to the art of forging, no matter how low the level of the item he forged was, it would still be extraordinary. Brother Wang, it looks like you've been in a lot of trouble recently? Lin Yi pointed at the surrounding ruins and asked with a smile. The king of Junk's expression froze. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly and said with an embarrassed smile, I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Brother Lin. I merely picked up something from the pile of junk they threw away. I didn't expect to get myself into so much trouble. It was clearly something that they threw away, but I picked it up and they insisted that I stole it. Brother Lin, don't you think they're being too unreasonable? Hee, that's how people are. It's fine if you're just throwing away some junk that no one wants. However, once they find out that they've made a mistake and thrown away the wrong item, it's like cutting off a piece of flesh from their body. Of course, they won't let it go. Lin Yi shook his head and suddenly asked, how did they know that they made a mistake? Brother Wang, you didn't pick it up in front of them, did you? The king of junk scratched his head awkwardly again and said with an embarrassed smile, come to think of it, it's also because of me. Brother Lin, you can also see that people like me can't stand people wasting good things. When I saw them throwing away good things like they were trash, I couldn't help but mutter a few words about it. I don't know how it spread to their ears. That's why they came looking for me. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing this. The king of junk's temperament was indeed like this. When he first traded with Chen Heihu, this guy couldn't help but say a few words to change his mind at the last minute and cut off the nine-tailed cloud leopard's front claws and whip tail. In other words, the reason was actually because of the king of junk himself. If those people knew that the junk they threw away was good stuff and was picked up by someone else, it would be strange if they could bear it. If those people were a little narrow-minded, it was inevitable that they would come looking for trouble. Moreover, the king of junk was basically a coward that could be trampled on by anyone. It could be seen that the king of junk's EQ was really not high. Looking at the situation, they should have been looking for you more than once. Brother Wang, why don't you leave this troublesome place as soon as possible? Instead, you stay here in such a mess. Lin Yi was puzzled. The wooden house here should have been burned a few days ago. The king of junk's burnt and miserable appearance was not caused by Lin Yi's frenzied fire fist just now. After all, the frenzied fire fist had locked onto the three people just now. The king of junk was at most slightly affected by the fist intent. If it was not unexpected, the king of junk's current appearance was left when the wooden house was burned. If it were someone else, they would definitely find a chance to leave in these few days. Even if they were worried and came back to take a look, they would at least clean themselves up. They would not look like this. Hee, I was afraid that Brother Lin wouldn't be able to find them when you arrived, so I've been waiting here. The tattered king said straightforwardly and honestly. Lin Yi could not help being speechless for a while. At the same time, he was secretly moved. It was just because of an agreement with a stranger that he stayed here regardless of the danger. It was really rare to see such an honest person like the king of junk these days. Brother Wang, you have been staying here all this time? Then why didn't they find you when they burned the house last time? Lin Yi could not help but ask curiously. Although the king of junk's strength was really weak, he could feel that he seemed to be good at hiding himself. Yes, they couldn't find me last time, so they burned my house to vent their anger. In fact, I have been hiding here from beginning to end. I just used the calm heart holding method, so they couldn't find me. The king of junk smiled proudly. Calm heart holding method? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Chapter 3971. I see. The art of forging is indeed unfathomable and extraordinary. Lin Yi exclaimed. Speaking of which, when he was in the secular world, he had already tried to forge weapons. That was how he got his fine steel staff. At that time, he thought that it wouldn't be too difficult to forge weapons. It was just that everyone had their own specialties, and he was still at the stage of fumbling around. But now, Lin Yi could feel the profoundness and depth of this line of work from the King of Garbage's words. This was a line of work that wasn't any weaker than elixir refinement, and underestimating it was a sign of ignorance on the part of an outsider. The three people just now were experts at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. Normally, it was impossible for someone like the Tattered King to fool them and burn down their house, unless it was an expert like Lin Yi. However, the Tattered King did it. It showed that the exclusive meditation and breath-holding method of a blacksmith was indeed extraordinary. Of course, I'm not boasting. Even if you study the art of forging for a lifetime, you will at most have a superficial understanding of it. It's impossible to master it completely. The Tattered King looked fascinated. After a pause, he suddenly rubbed his hands and said eagerly, "Brother Lin, time is precious. Can we start as soon as possible?" Lin Yi was startled. Looking at the Tattered King's impatience, he could not help but laugh. He pointed at the ruins in front of him and said, "I'm fine with it. But do we do it here?" The Tattered King immediately shook his head and said, "Of course not. Forging weapons is the same as alchemy. It has high requirements for the environment. Alchemy is better, at least there's an alchemy furnace. However, there's no such thing as a furnace for forging weapons. We can only find a suitable place by ourselves." "Then where can we find such a place?" Lin Yi was puzzled. In front of the Tattered King, he was a complete outsider. Since he had asked the Tattered King for help, he could only let the Tattered King make the decision. He only needed to cooperate fully. The Tattered King smiled mysteriously and said, "I know a good place. Brother Lin, just follow me." Lin Yi didn't mind. He asked the Tattered King to lead the way. They walked for an hour before they finally arrived at their destination. Looking at the hole in front of him that was as tall as a person and hidden by the weeds, Lin Yi was speechless. "If I remember correctly, this place should be at the edge of the Spirit Jade Mine, right?" "That's right, it's right next to the Spirit Jade Mine. Furthermore, it's not too far from the best mines in the Spirit Jade Mine. You might even be able to find some spiritual jades in the cave." The King of Rags and Rags led the way into the cave and answered without looking back. "It's not far from the number 1 and number 2 mines?" Lin Yi was surprised again. In that case, if one had the intention to dig, it was indeed possible to find spiritual jades. However, since the King of Junk knew of such a treasured land, how did he end up in such a state? After all, this place wasn't supervised like the Lingyu Hall mining area. As long as he dug up spiritual jades here, no matter how many there were, it would belong to him. His life should be quite comfortable. He shouldn't be so poor that he couldn't even afford some spiritual beast materials and had to shamelessly pick up the garbage thrown away by others, right? "Yes, but I'm just joking. Brother Lin, don't take it seriously. Don't touch the cave wall casually, let alone dig out the spiritual jades inside. If you accidentally touch the protective array inside, both of us will die." The King of Rags and Rags said as he took out a piece of fluorite that he had prepared long ago. He led the way into the depths of the cave with familiarity. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat and he asked curiously, "If I'm not wrong, since this place is so close to the number 1 and number 2 mines, it should be within the range of the protective array. Maybe we've already stepped on the protective array, but we don't know why we didn't touch it. How could there be such a cave out of nowhere?" The King of Rags and Rags shook his head and said, "I don't know either. Maybe it has something to do with my master. My master was the one who brought me here for the first time. After that, he left without saying goodbye, so no one else has been to this cave except me." Sun Sikong? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. When they first met in the marketplace, the King of Rags once said that he had learned from a master of forging called Sun Sikong for a few days. That must be the master he mentioned. "Yes, my master is very resourceful. It's not impossible for him to secretly make a cave under the protective array without the 3 pavilions knowing." The King of Rags and Rags' face was full of admiration. "I really want to meet such an expert if I have the chance." Lin Yi was also fascinated. This cave looked simple, but for it to be able to appear in such a tight defensive formation and not be discovered by anyone, the ability it displayed was not something that could be described in a few words. The person who created this cave was at least worthy of the word remarkable. It depends on fate. An expert like my master is always elusive. I'm afraid the chance of meeting him again in this life is very slim. The king of Rags and Rags sighed. As they talked, they had already arrived at the depths of the cave. The front was much more spacious than the passage. It was about 30 to 40 square meters, and there were many strange props placed in it. Seeing that Lin Yi was curiously looking at these props, the king of Rags smiled and said, "These are some auxiliary molds that may be used in the process of forging. However, whether they are useful or not depends on what kind of weapon you want to forge. Speaking of this, Brother Lin, do you have any requests?" "Yes, I came to you this time because I want you to help me upgrade a weapon." As Lin Yi said, he put down the package that he had been carrying on his back for a long time, and took out an ordinary-looking fire stick from it. It was his fine steel staff. After seeing the fine steel staff, the king of Rags' eyes suddenly lit up. He took it and looked at it carefully from top to bottom, and touched it with his hand. Then, he commented while smacking his lips, "This thing is made of good materials. I can see that the casting process is quite thoughtful. However, it's a bit of a waste that the properties of the materials are not fully explored." Lin Yi couldn't help but secretly wipe his cold sweat, and said with a wry smile, "I made this by myself, Brother King." Chapter 3972. He was counting on Lin Yi to give him good materials, so that he could satisfy his craving for forging. If he offended Lin Yi, or if he pissed off Lin Yi, he'd be crying. "Not at all, compared to you, Brother Wang, I'm just an amateur. I'd like to use this chance to learn the art of forging from you, Brother Wang. Is that okay?" Lin Yi smiled. Lin Yi, naturally, was a blacksmith, but he was just a dabbler. What made Lin Yi curious was, who was this Sun Sikong? Han Jingjing had said that her master was called Sun Sikong as well. Could these two Sun Sikongs be the same person? Then how did he come to Sky Class Island? Could he be a legendary figure like Zhang Liju? At the thought, Lin Yi's heart was filled with even more respect. The tattered king hurriedly said in excitement, "Brother Lin, you're too kind. It's my dream to have a like-minded person to explore the Tao of smithing with me. Don't worry, Brother Lin, I'll tell you everything I know. Then I'll thank you in advance, Brother Wang." Lin Yi nodded in thanks before taking out the high-level spirit beast materials that the Trash King had been longing for. It was the front claws and tail of the Cloud Nine-tail leopard. At the sight of these items, the tattered king's eyes immediately lit up. Like a hungry wolf seeing a sheep, his entire temperament changed instantly. Faintly, Lin Yi could feel the aura of a master that couldn't be underestimated. One could see that even if he wasn't strong enough, when a person was fully focused on something, his potential could be unearthed. These are all good stuff. The tattered king held these things in his arms like they were treasures. He carefully reached out and gently stroked them, afraid that he would dirty them. Looking at his posture, it seemed like he wanted to sleep with these things. After a moment of happiness, Junk King realized that there was a Lin Yi in front of him. He took out a few things and introduced them to Lin Yi. They were the black toad tail, fox bear bone, and wolf spider fur. "Brother Lin, these things may not look like much, and they're not the most valuable parts of the spiritual beasts, but these are the fruits of my hard work over the past few months. Together with your cloud leopard, they're definitely good stuff. They're very compatible with each other, and their effects aren't inferior to any other spiritual beast materials." Junk King showed Lin Yi. "Brother Wang, it's been hard on you these past few months." Lin Yi expressed his gratitude. "Not at all. It's not hard at all. To me, it's a good job, and I can't wait to be happy." Junk King chuckled. After a pause, Junk King looked at Lin Yi's fine steel staff and scratched his head. He said with fervor and assurance, "Brother Lin, you didn't tell me about this before, so I didn't think about the casting plan. But don't worry, I've roughly observed it just now, and your staff doesn't conflict with the materials of the cloud leopard, so it shouldn't be a problem to upgrade it. Moreover, the materials involved aren't many, so I believe it won't take long to gather all the materials. Even though Lin Yi was an outsider, he could see that Junk King was indeed a forging madman, and he definitely had real skills. If he was given the right opportunity, it might be possible for him to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. This Junk King, who was belittled by everyone, was actually a buried gem. Once he showed his brilliance, he would definitely amaze the world. Seeing that Junk King couldn't wait to start thinking about the upgrading plan, Lin Yi hurriedly said, "Brother Wang, please wait. I have other materials with me. Why don't you take a look first?" "Oh. Quick, take them out." Junk King's eyes lit up, and he couldn't wait to urge Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled, and then slowly took out a small porcelain bottle from the cloth bundle, and handed it to Junk King. The King of Junk took it, opened the bottle cap, and was stunned the moment he took a look. He put his nose close to the bottle and sniffed it in disbelief. He even dipped his finger into the bottle and tasted it. After a while, he became fanatical, and his eyes glowed with green light like a hungry wolf. "Brother Lin, this is the legendary ancient Pure Land?" Junk King stammered. "That's right, Brother Wang, you have a good eye. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to recognize this thing." Lin Yi praised with a smile. The ancient Pure Land was a rare and unorthodox treasure. Apart from the ghostly old monster who had lived for an unknown period of time, ordinary people would not be able to recognize it. They might not even have heard of it. Even Yu Zhe, who had immersed himself in the ancient classics, might not be able to recognize it. It could be seen that the King of Junk was indeed skilled in forging weapons. Hearing that, Junk King almost fainted, and it took him a while to regain his senses. He looked at Lin Yi with tears in his eyes, and almost knelt down. "Brother Lin, you're really my second parent. I have no more regrets in my life to be able to see such a legendary material. Don't worry, I haven't taken out anything yet." Seeing Junk King's expression as if he had gotten what he wanted, Lin Yi could not help but laugh. He took out another item from the bag and handed it to Junk King. This is a 1,000-year tree crystal. You even have such a thing? May I be so bold as to ask, who exactly are you, Brother Lin?" Junk King's eyes widened, and saliva flowed from the corner of his mouth uncontrollably. He looked like he had lost his soul. "I'm no saint, but I still have something to show you." With that, Lin Yi pulled out another piece of wood as if he was performing a magic trick, handing it to the Garbage King. Junk King took the piece of wood and looked at it carefully for a while. Then, without saying anything, he fell to the ground and fainted. Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry at this scene. Although the 1,000-year tree crystal was indeed rare, and it was shocking to see it together with the ancient Pure Land and the 1,000-year tree crystal, it was a little too much for Junk King to be so shocked that he fainted on the spot. Fortunately, he had encountered someone like the Tattered King who knew what was good for him. Otherwise, if it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't even be able to recognize the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient Pure Land, let alone be provoked. After a long time, Junk King finally woke up. He almost fainted again when he saw the priceless items in front of him. Lin Yi quickly grabbed him and joked, "Brother King, you're a blacksmith after all. I've only let you look at the materials, but you've fainted again and again. How can I ask you for help?" Junk King finally calmed himself down. He scratched his head awkwardly and smiled foolishly. His eyes could not move away from the 1,000-year tree crystal. Chapter 3973. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Lin Yi asked again, "Brother King, apart from the 9-tailed cloud leopard and the materials you've brought, the 10,000-year tree crystal, the 1,000-year tree crystal, and the ancient Pure Land should be more than enough to upgrade my fine steel magic staff, right?" Unexpectedly, the Junk King suddenly said with a serious expression, "Not enough. Of course these things are far from enough." "What?" Lin Yi paused, wondering if this guy's eyes had really been opened to treasures and started thinking about something he shouldn't have, right? There were so many rare items in this world, and he was using them to level up a steel staff. How could it not be enough? Could it be that this fellow wanted to take the opportunity to extort money? No matter how much of an amateur Lin Yi was, he had at least experimented with the art of forging, and had some understanding of it. In his estimation, if he wanted to upgrade his fine steel magic staff, ordinary materials and 1,000-year tree crystal should be enough. Now that he had the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient Pure Land, it was definitely more than enough. Brother Lin, I don't mind telling you the truth. Your fine steel magic staff is a good item in the heaven rank, but unfortunately, its quality isn't that high. If you use these top-notch materials to upgrade it, it would be more than enough, and you could guarantee a 100% success rate. It's just that you would be wasting these rare materials, the Junk King said with a pained expression. Lin Yi nodded in realization. It was just as the King of Junk had said. In terms of value, this staff of his wasn't even worth as much as something like the 10,000-year tree crystal. It was like replacing a car that cost tens of thousands of dollars with top-grade accessories that cost tens of millions. It was a waste, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a waste. Then what should we do? It's not good to abandon the fine steel magic staff, right? Lin Yi couldn't help feeling awkward. It would be a waste to use these top-notch materials to upgrade the fine steel staff. However, the fine steel staff was not an ordinary item, and he had poured a lot of effort into it. It would be a huge waste to discard it. He was in a dilemma. The Junk King frowned and pondered for a moment. Then, his eyes beaming with excitement, he said, "If it is simply used to upgrade the staff, it will certainly be an inhumane waste. But what if it evolves in a different way? Wouldn't it be the best of both worlds?" Evolve? Lin Yi was stunned. What's the difference between that and leveling up? Of course there's a difference. The King of Junk immediately exclaimed, "Upgrading weapons is very common. It doesn't require much skill. Basically, any blacksmith can do it." Is it common to upgrade weapons? Lin Yi was even more puzzled. But why did I hear that ordinary weapons can't be upgraded, and only materials like the 1,000-year tree crystal have a chance to be upgraded? The King of Junk smiled and explained patiently, "Brother Lin, there's something you don't know. You can say that you're right, but you can also say that you're wrong. You're just like other laymen. You might not know this, but the saying that ordinary weapons can't be upgraded came from the mouth of the blacksmiths. Think about it, if they make it sound too easy, how are they going to reap huge benefits from it? You blacksmiths are really cunning." Lin Yi quickly figured out the cause and effect. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let's not talk about whether ordinary weapons could be upgraded. If this concept became common knowledge, it would definitely be of great benefit to the blacksmiths. After all, the profession of blacksmithing was similar to alchemy. There were absolute professional barriers, and laymen had no other choice but to seek help from blacksmiths. In this way, after the difficulty was infinitely exaggerated, they could naturally reap huge benefits when upgrading weapons for others. Even if some people didn't want to upgrade their weapons because of this, they would still need new weapons. In the end, they would still have to seek help from blacksmiths, and it would immediately be a good business. Therefore, as long as this theory was spread out and became the mindset of the people, no one would be able to escape from being ruthlessly slaughtered. It would be a pity if the blacksmith who came up with this idea didn't open a trade union. Lin Yi thought about it and asked again. But, even if someone did spread this rumor, it's impossible for all the blacksmiths to be of one mind, right? Lies will be exposed one day. Did no one find out about it after all these years? If it was a lie that was fabricated out of thin air, it would indeed be easily seen through by others. However, the problem is that this statement isn't a complete lie, but a half-truth and half-falsehood. To an outsider who has been confused by the concept, it would be very difficult to distinguish between the two. Especially when this idea is deeply rooted, even if some blacksmiths stand out to explain it to them, they might not be able to accept it. Moreover, this saying is beneficial to blacksmiths. Who would be foolish enough to stand out and destroy their own jobs, and even become the target of their peers? King of Junk shook his head and said. Lin Yi was instantly interested, and asked, "What exactly is the half-truth?" "Brother Wang, can you tell me in detail?" "Of course, as long as Brother Lin is willing to listen." King of Junk immediately gestured for Lin Yi to take a seat, and explained with assurance, "In the eyes of laymen, weapon upgrading is just a general concept, but in the eyes of us blacksmiths, weapon upgrading has two completely different concepts. One is ordinary weapon upgrading, and the other is extremely difficult weapon evolution." "What's the difference between the two?" Lin Yi asked. There's a huge difference between the two. Ordinary weapon upgrading is actually no different from ordinary people repairing a hoe or an iron pot. As long as they pay attention to the compatibility of the materials, they can directly embed the upgrading materials into the weapon. There's no technical content, and of course, there won't be any great creation. In the end, weapons are weapons, and upgrading materials are upgrading materials. It's just that they're forcefully kneaded together by external forces. King of Junk twitched his mouth. Chapter 3974. What about the weapon evolution you just mentioned? Lin Yi continued to ask. Weapon evolution is completely different. Not only is the process extremely complicated, but it's also extremely difficult. The requirements for materials are also extremely high. After a high-intensity smelting reaction, the weapon and the material will be completely integrated. Basically, it's like a rebirth. The final weapon will be completely different from the original in both shape and ability, and its power will be at least 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times greater than the original. King of Junk said with burning eyes. I see. In that case, the correct explanation should be that ordinary weapons can't evolve. It's not the rumor that they can't be upgraded. The outside world has been confused by this general concept. Lin Yi nodded and said. That's right. Unless you find a rare treasure like the 1,000-year tree crystal, ordinary weapons can't evolve at all. Because without the protection of the characteristics of the 1,000-year tree crystal, it's difficult for them to withstand the high-intensity smelting reaction. Maybe they'll turn into ashes halfway. There are countless examples of such failures. King of Junk sighed. The 1,000-year tree crystal can be used to evolve weapons. So that's its use. I've learned a lot. Lin Yi cupped his hands at King of Junk. The Garbage King, on the other hand, looked at Lin Yi with fire in his eyes. Brother Lin, I'll be honest with you. My biggest wish in this life is to forge a weapon that's unrivaled in the world. But without you, I wouldn't be able to see such a rare treasure in this life. I wouldn't even have the chance to forge a weapon with it. You're my savior, my savior. Seeing that King of Junk knelt down to him without saying anything, Lin Yi hurriedly pulled him back and said emotionally, Brother Wang, what are you doing? You promised to forge weapons for me unconditionally. I'm grateful to you. Why are you kneeling down to me? What the hell is this? If you do this again, I won't dare to ask you for help. No. You have to ask me for help. You have to ask me for help. I'm the only one who can use such supreme materials in the North Island. No one else can do it. King of Junk hurriedly got up and said. This guy's tone was still as big as ever. Lin Yi laughed in his heart. But after this period of contact, he didn't doubt the King of Junk's ability anymore. It could only be said that all experts had their own pride. At least in the path of forging, the King of Junk's pride wasn't groundless. As for the rumor that he didn't succeed in forging weapons, from Lin Yi's point of view, it was either because he disdained ordinary weapons, or because he really lacked the materials. Moreover, no one believed him at all. Then, what should we do to make perfect use of these materials and not waste them? Brother Wang, didn't you just say that these materials are far from enough? Lin Yi returned to the main topic. King of Junk didn't answer him immediately. Instead, he turned around and took out a piece of white paper from the corner of the cave. After writing a series of things on it, he handed it to Lin Yi and said, "I've thought about it carefully just now. Brother Lin, it's rare for you to get such top materials as the ancient Pure Land and the 10,000-year tree crystal. Instead of dealing with them carelessly, it's better to make a big one. What do you think, Brother Lin?" Lin Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. King of Junk's idea was exactly what he wanted. He immediately asked, "I think so too. But how to make a big one? I've listed a total of 7 materials on this piece of paper. Only after gathering these 7 materials and cooperating with each other can the effect of the ancient Pure Land and the 10,000-year tree crystal be fully exerted. At that time, we can melt the fine steel staff in the furnace, and it will definitely be reborn and become a generation of magic weapons." King of Junk vowed solemnly. Upon hearing this, Lin Yi roughly glanced at the 7 casting materials listed on the white paper. They were all things that he had never seen or heard of before. Among them, the only one that he had a slight impression of was called the mysterious water droplet. "I've seen this mysterious water droplet in the Hong Chamber of Commerce before. It's priced at 600 or 700 spiritual jade. I've never seen or heard of any of the others." Lin Yi pondered and said. King of Junk nodded and said, "Although these 7 materials are only used as auxiliary materials, they can be used with the ancient Pure Land and the 10,000-year tree crystal. Even the auxiliary materials are not cheap. The mysterious water droplet is one of the easiest to buy. As for the other 6, it's not usually available. Even a top chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce may not have such a stock. Then where can we find them?" Lin Yi could not help but be stunned. If he could not even buy them in the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he might not be able to find all of them in his lifetime. It's obviously unrealistic to find these things by ourselves. We can only pin our hopes on the auction. It just so happens that as far as I know, next month will be the semi-annual North Island auction. Except for the legendary items like the 10,000-year tree crystal, you should have a chance to see most of the treasures. Brother Lin, why don't you give it a try? But how to get the qualification to enter the auction is a big problem. King of Junk scratched his head in distress. Is it difficult to get the qualification to enter the auction? Will the spiritual jade card work? Lin Yi showed the spiritual jade card in his hand. This was the symbol of his status. Since he could freely enter and exit the inner street, he should be able to enter the auction too, right? Brother Lin, you're really not an ordinary person. You even have this kind of thing. Looking at the spiritual jade card, King of Junk could not help swallowing his saliva. A poor cultivator like him, who lived at the bottom of society, could never get a spiritual jade card in his lifetime. However, King of Junk immediately shook his head and said, "I don't know the specific situation, but the auction isn't just held by the Chamber of Commerce in the inner street. It's an alliance of all the top forces in the North Island. It's said that even some big shots in the Middle Island are involved. The people who enter and exit are all extraordinary, so a spiritual jade card may not work. I can't help you with this kind of thing. You can only rely on yourself, Brother Lin." "I see. Then I'll find someone to inquire about it later." Lin Yi nodded. It was really difficult to count on King of Junk for this kind of thing. It was good enough that he could provide information. He still had to rely on Lin Yi. Well, there are many good things at the auction, but the competition is fierce. If you want to buy all 7 kinds of materials, you'll probably have to spend thousands of spiritual jade, or even tens of thousands if you're unlucky. Brother Lin, you have to be mentally prepared. However, since you have a 10,000-year-old tree crystal, you don't need this 1,000-year-old tree crystal. You can sell it at the auction for a lot of spiritual jade, King of Junk suggested. "I know. By the way, there's one more thing I want you to see if it's a casting material," Lin Yi suddenly said. Chapter 3975. "Shit, Brother Lin, don't tell me you got some rare ancient treasure again. My heart can't stand such a big shock." King of Junk said in surprise, but he couldn't help poking his head over and picking up a bit of blood-red gravel to observe it carefully. After a while, King of Junk shook his head helplessly. I don't know this thing. It shouldn't be used for forging, otherwise I have no reason not to recognize it. But even so, I can see that it's definitely a good thing. Brother Lin, you can take it to the auction and let someone appraise it. Then you should know. Lin Yi wasn't too surprised. It was normal that the garbage king couldn't recognize something that even this damn thing couldn't recognize. He'd thought that it was some kind of crafting material, but it seemed like he was wrong. After that, the two talked about weaponsmithing for a bit. The king of garbage's extraordinary knowledge in this area was quite an eye-opener. According to King of Junk himself, this was just the result of Sun Sikong's casual guidance for a few days. Lin Yi couldn't help but be secretly shocked. The cultivation world was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Brother Lin, I'll leave the 7 materials to you. I can't help much in this aspect, but I can take this time to do some preparation work. After all, forging a magic weapon is a big event. There can't be any mistakes. King of Junk solemnly said to Lin Yi. Then I'll leave Brother Wang to trouble you. I'll leave first. Brother Wang, wait for my news. Lin Yi immediately stood up and said goodbye. It was not too late when he left the cave. Lin Yi immediately left for the marketplace. Naturally, his purpose was to go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce to ask Hong Zhong about the auction. However, Lin Yi didn't go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce directly. Instead, he went to find Shen Heihu. It had been some time since he came here last time. He wanted to see if there was any news about the heart-devouring exquisite grass. The answer he got from Chen Heihu disappointed Lin Yi a little. Chen Heihu had spread the news of buying the heart-devouring exquisite grass to all his contacts, but there was still no news so far. It could be seen that the heart-devouring exquisite grass was indeed rare. It was already very lucky that he could find it in the periphery of the back mountain and among the spiritual medicine seeds distributed by Ling Yu Hall. Fortunately, the east wasn't bright, and the west was bright. There was no news from Chen Heihu, after all. Lin Yi had asked Hong Zhong for help back then. As soon as Lin Yi stepped into the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Hong Zhong, who was patrolling downstairs, came up and led him to a private room on the 2nd floor. And said, Hero Lin, you asked me to help you buy the heart-devouring exquisite grass last time. Now, I have got 2. I'll ask someone to pack it for you. Lin Yi was overjoyed when he heard that. He said gratefully, Thank you so much, Manager Hong. What's the price? Then 100 spiritual jades for 1. What do you think, Hero Lin? Hong Zhong smiled and said while stroking his beard. Lin Yi's heart moved. He knew that Hong Zhong was doing him a favor again. If it was an ordinary spiritual medicine, it could be bought with a few spiritual jades. 100 spiritual jades was considered a heaven-grade spiritual jades. However, the rarer something was, the greater its value. With the rarity of the heart-devouring exquisite grass, 100 spiritual jades for 1 was practically half selling and half giving away. He probably did not buy it at such a low price. Lin Yi was not in a hurry to answer. He passed the white paper that King of Rags wrote to him to Hong Zhong and said, Manager Hong, other than the matter of the heart-devouring exquisite grass, the other reason I came here is to buy the items on this list. I wonder if the Chamber of Commerce has them in stock. Oh. Hero Lin, please wait for a moment. I'll get someone to check. Hong Zhong gestured for Lin Yi to drink his tea and instructed the manservant at the door. After a while, the manservant reported, out of the 7 materials, our Chamber of Commerce has only the mysterious droplet in stock at the moment. The price is 649 spiritual jades. We don't have the other 6. Sure enough. Lin Yi had already expected this, so he didn't feel regretful. He immediately said, Then, pack up this mysterious water drop and the 2 heart-devouring exquisite grass for me. It's a total of 1,000 spirit jades. Is that all right, shopkeeper Hong? Hong Zhong immediately smiled and waved his hand. Hero Lin, you must be joking. I know you mean well. However, business is business. Since I said one heart-devouring exquisite grass is 100 spiritual jades, I won't charge you half a piece more. Otherwise, where is the integrity of a businessman? If people find out, who would dare to do business with the Hong Chamber of Commerce in the future? Lin Yi knew he had said something wrong, so he could only say, all right then. I'll use the extra spiritual jades to buy spiritual medicine. Is that okay? Lin Yi never liked to owe people favors. Since Hong Zhong was not willing to charge more spiritual jades, he might as well go back and refine some medicinal pills. Next time, he would bring a few top-grade foundation establishment pills for him. At that time, Hong Zhong would definitely be more than happy and would not refuse him like this. Hong Zhong seemed to have seen through Lin Yi's plan. He smiled knowingly and said, then I'll thank Hero Lin for your care. If Hero Lin is not in a hurry, I can also get someone to keep an eye on the remaining 6 materials for you. Just like the heart-devouring exquisite grass, after a period of time, you might get something. Thank you, Manager Hong. However, I heard that there will be an auction on the North Island next month? Lin Yi asked tentatively. Hong Zhong immediately understood and nodded, yes, the level of this auction is not low. Hero Lin, you should be able to find the things you want there. Are you interested in going to have a look? Yes, I'm just worried about how to get the qualification to enter. I wonder if Manager Hong can help me? Lin Yi said immediately. Hong Zhong could not help but smile and said, Hero Lin, you don't have to worry. Although the qualification to enter the North Island auction is very rare, and ordinary people can't enter unless they are a powerful force, but fortunately, our Hong Chamber of Commerce is also one of the sponsors of the auction, so we naturally have the qualification to bring extra people to enter. If it's convenient for Hero Lin, how about coming with me? Lin Yi could not help but be overjoyed. Before coming here, he thought he would have to spend a lot of effort to get the qualification, but he did not expect that Hong Zhong would easily solve it for him with a simple sentence. Things like connections were really priceless at critical times. Thank you, Manager Hong. Lin Yi said gratefully. Chapter 3976. It had to be said that Hong Zhong's position as the manager of the branch of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was not for nothing. He had done a great favor for others, but he never claimed credit for it. Instead, he spoke of it so casually that it made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. As long as one wasn't an ungrateful person, they would definitely remember such a favor. Moreover, they would remember it willingly and without the slightest bit of discomfort. Over time, they would naturally form a huge and reliable network. The more friends, the more options. This was definitely a golden saying in the cultivation world, and it was even more so for a businessman like Hong Zhong who relied on his connections to make a living. It could only be said that people like Hong Zhong, no matter what they did, would definitely be able to achieve great things in the end. Strength was only one aspect, but his character and wisdom in dealing with people were also indispensable. Many times, it was even more useful than great strength. Lin Yi could not help but deeply feel that being on good terms with a person like Hong Zhong would definitely be of great benefit to his future development. I am already very grateful for your help, Manager Hong. How can I be insatiable and borrow spiritual jades from you? Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, actually, the reason why I brought so many elixir materials back this time is because I'm preparing to start refining elixirs. I'll bring them over and sell them to you, Manager Hong. I believe it should be enough for the auction. That's great. Then I will wait and see young Hero Lin's work. Hong Zhong's eyes lit up and he nodded approvingly. After saying goodbye to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi did not stay outside for long and immediately returned home. He could only put aside the matter of forging for the time being. Now that he had 2 heart-devouring exquisite grasses in his hands, it was naturally more important to first refine the foundation establishment pill. Strictly speaking, it had not been long since Lin Yi advanced to the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Before he completely stabilized his strength, even if he had the foundation establishment pill, he would not use it for the time being. After all, haste makes waste, and this would easily cause side effects. Therefore, at least in a short period of time, Lin Yi still didn't need the foundation building pills, but it was better to be prepared. Currently, Lin Yi was only in the middle stage of the foundation building realm, and in the future, he would stay in the foundation building realm for a long time. For him, the more foundation building pills, the better, and there was no reason to complain about having too many. After an uneventful night, Lin Yi was already very familiar with alchemy. With the help of the divine armament cauldron, there were basically no mistakes. This time was the same. Lin Yi had thought that it would at least be the same as last time. After all, these two heart-devouring exquisite grasses were harvested from the wild by others this time. Unlike those cultivated in batches in the spirit medicine nursery, which had congenital defects, the quality of the heart-devouring exquisite grasses was slightly better than the previous one. However, the reality was that only 2 foundation establishment pills were successfully refined in the end. But in the cauldron, Lin Yi found 2 other useless pills, which meant that if everything went smoothly, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to use them. This time, he should have been able to refine 4 foundation building pills in one go, but he didn't expect that half of them would fail prematurely, causing him to sigh helplessly. This was something that couldn't be helped. No alchemist could maintain a 100% success rate. Even with the help of the divine armament cauldron, Lin Yi was no exception. It was inevitable that there would be waste pills. In addition to sighing with regret, he could only helplessly accept the reality. Lin Yi was not greedy. He was already very satisfied that he could refine 2 foundation establishment pills this time. As for whether these 2 pills would be enough for him to reach the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment in the future, he could only wait until the future. If it was not enough, as long as Hong Zhong and Shen Heihu continued to help him, with the influence of these 2 people, Lin Yi believed that he would have the opportunity to purchase the heart-devouring exquisite grasses again in the future. As long as he had the heart-devouring exquisite grasses, the foundation establishment pills would naturally not be a problem. However, the waste pills were not completely useless. This waste foundation establishment pill had similar effects as the foundation establishment pill. It could allow people who did not build the foundation to successfully build the foundation, and the effect was better than the foundation establishment pill. After slightly adjusting his state, Lin Yi quickly prepared to refine pills again. This time, he was preparing to refine the foundation establishment barrier breaking pill. Other than keeping a few for his own use, Lin Yi planned to sell most of the foundation establishment barrier breaking pills to the Hong Chamber of Commerce according to the previous agreement. In this way, not only could he return a favor to Hong Zhong, but he could also raise a large amount of spirit jade to prepare for the auction, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, before Lin Yi could reopen the furnace again, the restriction outside the cave house was touched, and Lin Yi had to temporarily stop. Opening the door of the cave house, looking at the familiar old faces in front of him, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. Hee, what kind of wind is blowing today? What can I do for you guys? At this moment, standing in front of the door of the cave house was impressively Su Lingchong, Kang Mingming, and Zhong Pingliang's group. Putting aside Lin Yi's identity, these people in front of him were currently Lin Yi's biggest enemies, especially after he had lost a capable subordinate like Meng Jueguang for nothing. This young master Su Lingchong probably couldn't wait to quickly crush Lin Yi to death. At this moment, he had brought people to publicly knock on the door. What was the meaning of this? No matter what, it was still broad daylight, and some of the alarmed Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers were still watching from afar. Lin Yi predicted that even if the other party had 10 times the guts, they would definitely not dare to come knocking on his door in this kind of situation. Seeing that not only was Lin Yi not afraid, but instead had a carefree and condescending attitude, Su Lingchong's chest immediately felt stifled. This time, he indeed didn't plan to play hard with Lin Yi, but in the end, he still wanted to put on a show of strength to suppress the scene. It would be best if he could scare Lin Yi to the point of pissing his pants in front of everyone, making him lose all face in front of everyone, and from then on, he wouldn't have the face to see anyone. So, this time, Su Lingchong personally released a strong aura, unreservedly the full circle of Foundation establishment. Such a terrifying aura was completely revealed, and if people like Kang Ming and the others weren't hiding behind him, they would have long been unable to bear the pressure and directly kneel down. However, at this moment, standing in front of him, only 2 steps away from him, Lin Yi, was as calm as the clouds and wind, as if nothing had happened, and this was really out of Su Lingqiang's expectations. To be honest, if Lin Yi only had the strength of the early stage of Foundation establishment, facing such a strong aura from the other party, there was really a possibility that he wouldn't be able to bear it. However, he was already an out-and-out mid-stage Foundation establishment expert, and in addition to his own tenacity, his strength was also far above ordinary experts of the same level. If he couldn't even bear this little bit of aura from the other party, then what the hell was he supposed to do in the future? Chapter 3977. Su Lingqiang's face darkened as he was mocked by a newcomer like Lin Yi. Next to him, Kang Ming quickly jumped out and said, "Consider my ass. You're just a poor rogue cultivator. You're not even qualified to lick young Master Su's toes. How can you be a security guard?" "Bullshit." Lin Yi laughed, "It doesn't matter if I'm qualified or not. I don't have the hobby of licking other people's toes. But you, Great Deacon Kang, are definitely qualified, right? Otherwise, how could you become someone's follower?" Kang Xiaoming choked and couldn't say anything for a while. Although everyone wanted to lick Master Su's toes, practitioners had their own pride. If he were to say something like that, how would he be able to show his face in the Welcome Pavilion in the future? Seeing that Great Deacon Kang is so energetic, your injury should be almost healed. Just in time, the 10 days that Pavilion Master Hu mentioned last time are almost up. Can you quickly vacate your cave abode number 1 on the top of the mountain? I'm still waiting to exchange with the other newcomers of the Rising Sky Pavilion. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said. Kang Ming's face suddenly stiffened again. He thought to himself, damn it, this situation is not right. I was obviously following young Master Su to show off. Why did Lin Yi turn the tables with just a few words? In fact, because of his injury, Hu Yunfeng had given him a 4th-grade recover pill. Under the powerful effect of the pill, Kang Ming's injury had almost recovered a few days ago. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to go to Murongzhen, that slut, and make love day and night. These days, Kang Ming had been deliberately putting this matter at the back of his mind. He didn't even greet Su Lingqiang, his backer. He didn't expect that Lin Yi would expose it in front of Su Lingqiang. How would this end? Sure enough, Su Lingqiang immediately looked at Kang Ming suspiciously and asked, Zhao Ming, you want to give him the cave abode number 1 on the top of the mountain? What's going on? Recently, Su Lingqiang had been busy competing with the South Heaven Gate for the position of the first senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Recently, he had finally made some progress, but immediately, Meng Jueguang's matter appeared. In addition, he had to preside over the Shangguan Laner's birthday party, so he had no time to take care of the small matters in Yingxin Pavilion. In addition, Kang Ming didn't take the initiative to confess to him, and Hu Yunfeng didn't give Kang Ming face, so Su Lingqiang didn't know anything about the Interpavilion challenge. Kang Ming stammered, unable to speak for a long time. Lin Yi saw this and chuckled, saying on his behalf, so young Master Su still doesn't know. Great Deacon Kang purposely concealed military intelligence. It's a bit unjustifiable to be a follower. Well, since Great Deacon Kang is too embarrassed to say it, then I will say it for you. Young Master Su, he lost the number 1 cave abode on the mountain top to me during the Cross Pavilion Challenge. According to what Pavilion Lord Hu said at that time, now that 10 days have passed, he naturally has to give up the cave abode to me. I can't let Pavilion Master Hu go back on his words, right? There's such a thing? Disappointing thing. I'll deal with you when we get back. Su Lingqiang's face couldn't help but turn gloomy. It wasn't that he didn't understand why Kang Ming couldn't beat Lin Yi. But the thing that pissed him off the most was that Kang Xiaoming dared to hide it from him. This was intolerable. As a superior, there was one thing that Su Lingchong hated and hated the most. It was his subordinates concealing military intelligence on their own, because this would cause the situation to get out of his control, and it would be very easy to end up like what was happening now. Lin Yi inexplicably took the initiative. Yes, young Master Su, please calm down. I know I'm wrong. Kang Mingming quickly nodded and bowed, pretending to be sad as he explained, young Master Su, you have many matters to attend to. I also don't want to trouble young Master Su because of such a small matter. As a younger brother, I can't share young Master Su's worries, but instead, I've caused trouble for young Master Su. I really don't have the face to open this mouth, so no matter how great the grievance is, I can only swallow it first and talk about it in the future. Kang Mingming was really a master of acting. At that time, he concealed the information because he had selfish motives and didn't want to lose points in front of his master, but he was made into a tragic character who shouldered all the grievances. Even a smart person like Su Lingchong was stunned by his words. In that case, I've blamed you wrongly. Based on Zhao Ming's rare kindness, I won't blame you. Su Lingchong stretched out his hand and patted Kang Mingming's shoulder, comforting him, you're an authentic pill master after all, it's not strange that you can't beat others. As long as you complete the task that I've assigned to you, you'll still have a great merit. Actually, did Su Lingchong really not know what was going on? Actually, not necessarily. It was just that he was better at winning people's hearts than Meng Jueguang. Yes, thank you for young Master Su's understanding. Zhao Ming dares not to give his all. Kang Mingming was moved to tears of gratitude, like a gentleman dying for a bosom friend. Looking at this scene, Lin Yi was secretly speechless. Kang Mingming was indeed an expert at flattering people. His flattery was watertight. Even someone like Su Lingchong fell for it. It seemed that this fellow didn't rely on pure luck to be where he was today. However, in Lin Yi's view, a smart fellow like Su Lingchong shouldn't be so easily deceived by Kang Mingming. Maybe he had the intention to create an image of a broad-minded master so that his subordinates would be more willing to serve him. Hence, he was just taking the opportunity to cooperate with the act. Alright, don't be in such a hurry to act. My question just now, can Great Deacon Kang give me an accurate answer? Lin Yi had a mocking smile on his face as he interrupted them. Kang Mingming was originally feeling complacent, but he immediately became depressed. Once the 10 days were up, the first cave abode on the mountain peak would have to be given to Lin Yi. This was a problem that couldn't be avoided no matter what. However, this cave abode on the mountain peak not only meant superior spiritual energy conditions to Kang Mingming, but more importantly, it was a symbol of status. If Lin Yi occupied the cave abode for his own use, then it was fine. Kang Mingming would at most be embarrassed. However, if he did as Lin Yi said and transferred the cave abode to another Soaring Sky Pavilion newcomer, then not only would he be embarrassed, but his position as the #1 newcomer in Soaring Sky Pavilion would also be threatened. Even Su Lingchong, who was behind him, would be affected. Chapter 3978. With Su Lingchong's status as the heir of the young master, even the slightest damage to his image was extremely likely to be fatal. If it was continuously publicized by people with ulterior motives, no matter how small it was, it would become a huge matter that could even affect whether he could successfully ascend to the position in the future. Su Lingchong understood this point even more deeply than Kang Mingming. He immediately threatened in a deep voice, the #1 abode on the mountain peak, besides Kang Mingming, I won't let it fall into the hands of anyone. No one. Lin Yi, do you want to try? Lin Yi instantly laughed. He wouldn't fall for this trick. He immediately raised his eyebrows and said, as expected of young Master Su. How impressive. Unfortunately, this is the welcome pavilion. Young Master Su, what you say doesn't seem to count. Or is young Master Su going to overstep his authority and help pavilion manager who manage the newcomers under us? Humph, you have a sharp tongue. Su Lingchong glared fiercely at Lin Yi, then suddenly laughed and said, ha ha ha, I was only joking. Young hero Lin, do you need to be so nervous? Just as you said, this is Hu Yunfeng's territory. I naturally won't overstep my authority. That's good. I thought young Master Su wanted to erase the spoils of war that I painstakingly won with just one sentence. If it fell into the ears of the higher-ups, wouldn't it be too inexcusable? Lin Yi faintly smiled without fear. A person like Su Lingchong, who had a deep background and a bright future, was perfect in all aspects to the point of being almost invulnerable. He indeed seemed to be an extremely powerful and terrifying opponent. However, he also had a huge weakness, which was that his ambition was too great. It was precisely because Su Lingchong had great ambition that he had to care about his image. Not to mention sending people to assassinate Lin Yi, even a common small matter like suppressing newcomers couldn't be done because it would damage his glorious image. Otherwise, if he really had no scruples, with the disparity in strength and status, it would be impossible for Lin Yi to deal with him unscathed until today. Su Lingchong's face stiffened. He could only say, "How can I make you give up the #1 abode on the mountain peak?" Name a price. You want me to name a price? Lin Yi smiled meaningfully and said indifferently, "I'm sorry, I've already made an agreement with the other Soaring Sky Pavilion rookies. If I let Great Deacon Kong occupy the first cave mansion at the top of the mountain in the end, wouldn't it damage my reputation?" The meaning behind his words was clearly that he was ready to rip them off. Su Lingchong disdained to argue with Lin Yi, who was a newcomer at the bottom, and he disliked the feeling of being manipulated by others even more. He immediately gave Kong Mingming a look, indicating that he should come forward to solve the problem. After all, he was the one who made the mistake. How could he let Su Lingchong, the boss, personally clean up his mess? Kong Mingming could only bite the bullet and say, "As long as the conditions are right, nothing is impossible." Lin Yi, you should be very clear that the other Soaring Sky Pavilion rookies can't come up with better conditions than mine. Instead of letting those people benefit, it's better for you to benefit yourself, isn't it? Oh. What conditions did Great Deacon Kong prepare for me? Why don't you tell me? Lin Yi said with great interest. Kong Mingming couldn't help but choke again. His weakness had fallen into Lin Yi's hands. He knew that he was definitely going to be ripped off today, and he couldn't escape. He could only say, "People die for wealth, and birds die for food. You just want spiritual jades, right? I'll give you 5 spiritual jades, how about it?" Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. 5 spiritual jades? The first cave mansion at the top of the mountain is only worth 5 spiritual jades in the eyes of Great Deacon Kong? Let me ask you, are you trying to get rid of a beggar? Then, 10 spiritual jades, that's a lot. Kong Mingming quickly said. Not enough. Lin Yi raised his eyelids indifferently. 20 spiritual jades, not one more. Otherwise, you can go find other people. I want to see how much they can give you. Kong Mingming gritted his teeth and said. Although the first cave mansion at the top of the mountain was good, the 1-year period given to the newcomers had already passed half a year ago. In other words, Kong Mingming's condition was equivalent to exchanging 20 spiritual jades for the right to use the first cave mansion at the top of the mountain for half a year. There was almost no better condition than this in the world. Of course, Kong Mingming was never a person who would suffer a loss for nothing. He dared to bid like this because he had seen the rumor that happened to Lin Yi before. The rumor that Lin Yi couldn't distinguish between good and bad jades, and was constantly being traded for good jades by Meng Tong and the others. The price of 20 good jades was definitely enough to make him die of heartache, but if they were exchanged for 20 bad jades, it would be no problem, and he could get them in minutes. Lin Yi was well aware of this. He sneered in his heart and still said indifferently, Great Deacon Kong, you really are a person of status. You are generous when you open your mouth. Unfortunately, I don't want your 20 spiritual jades at all. What the hell? Kong Mingming almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Lin Yi with a face of disbelief. What the hell is wrong with this guy's brain? He doesn't want 20 spiritual jades at all? Who the hell do you think you are? Could it be that this guy has already realized my bad intentions? Kang Mingming's heart was beating fast, and he said with a gloomy face, Lin Yi, don't go too far. I advise you not to go too far. Don't go too far. I can't tell that Great Deacon Kang is quite reasonable. Unfortunately, you don't seem to have this awareness. Lin Yi curled his lips mockingly, and Kang Mingming was so embarrassed that his face turned purple. Then, he said, why don't I make it clear? I don't want the spiritual jades, but I want the spiritual herb seeds. As soon as these words came out, not only Kang Mingming, but even Su Lingchong was stunned. Putting 20 spiritual jades together with the spiritual herb seeds, any normal person would know which one to choose. Although the spiritual herb seeds had the hope of survival, unless it was in a professional place like the spiritual medicine nursery, the possibility of survival was very small. For most people, it was basically of little value. However, during the spiritual herb assessment, Lin Yi had once cultivated 39 spiritual herb seeds out of 40. No matter what methods he used, the spiritual herb seeds might really be a money-making machine in his hands. How many spiritual herb seeds do you want? Kang Mingming asked in a low voice. Lin Yi didn't want the spiritual jades, and instead asked for the spiritual herb seeds. To him, it wasn't a bad thing. Anyway, because of Su Lingchong's care, he had recently built a relationship with many people with power in the pill hall. Even if the spiritual flower manager of the spiritual medicine nursery was lukewarm to him because of the previous incident of slandering Lin Yi, if he only wanted to get some spiritual herb seeds, it wouldn't be a problem. Chapter 3979. The value was not high, so naturally, the security would not be too strict. Hence, for people like Kang Mingming who had connections, getting some spiritual medicine seeds was almost a piece of cake. It would be best if he could use them to get rid of Lin Yi. Just like the previous spiritual medicine assessment, 40 spiritual medicine seeds will form a group. Give me 5 groups, Lin Yi said immediately. This was something that Lin Yi had thought about long ago. If he wanted the heart-devouring exquisite grass, other than looking for Hongzhong and Shen Heihu to help him purchase it, the other way was to get the spiritual medicine nursery's spiritual medicine. It was a pity that he was not a member of the pill hall and did not have any reliable connections. It was obviously impossible for him to rely on himself. On the other hand, Kang Mingming had been doing very well in the pill hall under Su Lingchong's care. It was said that he had even reserved a position in the pill hall in advance. Once the welcoming pavilion was over, he could immediately join the pill hall. It was a good opportunity to get this idea from him. However, it was impossible for Lin Yi to directly ask for the heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds. In order to fool people, he could only do the same as the previous spiritual medicine assessment and ask for all 40 spiritual medicine seeds. Anyway, they could be used as spiritual medicine reserves in the future, so it would not be a waste to ask for more. 40 spiritual medicine seeds a group and you want 5 groups? Are you crazy for the spiritual medicine seeds? Do you think that the pill hall is opened by my family and you can take anything you want? Kang Mingming instantly jumped up. It was true that he had the connections to get the spiritual medicine seeds, but if Lin Yi wanted 5 groups, that would be a total of 200 spiritual medicine seeds. If this was discovered, it would be a big problem. After all, Kang Mingming was not an internal member of the pill hall. Even if others took care of him for Su Lingchong's sake, they would not put themselves in danger just to help him. Lin Yi also knew that this was too unrealistic. However, when it came to transactions, one had to pay the price as high as one could. He immediately said, "Fine, then I will reluctantly take a step back." 4 groups. Impossible. Kang Mingming refused again. It seemed that Lin Yi had taken a step back, but there were still 160 pills in 4 groups, which was not a small number, and the risk was not small. Lin Yi's expression immediately turned cold. He stretched out his hand to send them off and said, "If that's the case, then there's nothing to talk about. Take care. Forgive me for not sending you off." Wait, 3 groups. 3 groups at most. It's impossible to have more than that, Kang Ming said quickly. In reality, even if the third group had 120 spiritual herb seeds, they still had to take risks. But now that the initiative was in the hands of Lin Yi, there was nothing he could do. Moreover, behind him stood Su Lingchong, his master's backing. This time, Su Lingchong wasn't here to help him clean up his mess. If he didn't agree to Lin Yi's conditions and delayed Su Lingchong's proper business, then it wouldn't be justifiable. 3 groups? Lin Yi pondered for a moment and then said, then I still want the cave dwelling. 4 groups is my bottom line, otherwise there's no need to talk about it. You. Kang Ming was just about to get angry, but Su Lingchong interrupted him impatiently and said to Lin Yi, okay, I will give you 4 groups. Don't mention this again in the future. No problem. However, I will say the ugly words first. Send them to me before tomorrow's sunset. If you are late or any one of them is missing, this agreement will not be valid. At that time, the number 1 cave dwelling on the top of the mountain will have nothing to do with you, understand? Lin Yi said. It's a deal. Kang Ming had to bite the bullet and agree. Although the time was a little tight, this matter was easy to handle since Su Lingchong came forward. With Su Lingchong's face, he didn't need to take any risks and he could get back the number 1 cave dwelling on the top of the mountain from Lin Yi. For Kang Ming, this deal was already very worthwhile. There was no need to continue to dawdle like this. Otherwise, if he angered Lin Yi, he would be finished. Then I will wait for Great Deacon Kang's good news. Lin Yi smiled faintly. 4 groups of elixir seeds meant that there were 4 seeds of the heart-devouring exquisite grass, which was already a rare surprise. At this time, Su Lingchong finally said, since the matter between you 2 is over, then I will talk about the purpose of this time's visit. Lin Yi, I heard that you once saved little junior sister Lan, in the back mountain. Hee, where did young Master Su hear this news? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Immediately, Lin Yi glanced meaningfully at Murongzhen who was watching from afar. He knew that this matter must have come from the mouth of this woman, and she must have changed her appearance. Otherwise, if she really told the truth, with Su Lingchong's position, it was impossible for him to let this sinister woman who wanted to kill Shangguan Laner go. He would have already killed her with a slap. Su Lingchong pretended to be profound as he smiled complacently. In a place like the 3 great pavilions, as long as I want to know something, it's naturally as easy as flipping my hand. Looking at your performance, it should be true, right? So what? Lin Yi asked noncommittally. Although he had the intention to help Shangguan Laner get rid of the threat of Murongzhen, he had never planned to use Su Lingchong's hand. After all, he still did not know what Shangguan Laner would say about the matter of the Half-Moon Lake. If he said something wrong and was caught by others, that would not be good. Logically speaking, a newcomer like you is not qualified to have any interaction with a high and mighty little princess like little junior sister Lan, However, little junior sister Lan, is a person who values friendship. Because of this matter, she feels that she owes you a favor. Of course, she also helped you in the law enforcement hall last time, so we should be even. Su Lingchong said in a condescending tone. That is also thanks to young Master Su. It seems that this favor will still fall on young Master Su's head in the future. Lin Yi replied with his eyes narrowed. Su Lingchong turned a deaf ear to this and pretended not to hear it. He continued, Lin Yi, remember one thing for me. Little junior sister Lan, is a high and mighty little princess. She is not someone that a small grass root like you can touch. If you want to continue to live well, then stay as far away from her as possible. Do you understand what I mean? Lin Yi smiled ambiguously, then looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot, and said lightly, young Master Su mobilized so many people and came all the way here. Is it just to say this to me? Of course not. In order to cut off your poor and humble fantasy, so that you will not continue to harass little junior sister Lan, with the small favor in the back mountain, I decided to make an exception and send you, a newcomer at the bottom, an invitation. Su Lingchong winked at Kong Mingming, who was next to him. Kong Mingming immediately handed an invitation to Lin Yi. Chapter 3980. Shangguan Laner's birthday was coming soon. This was something she once said to him. Lin Yi was still having a headache about how to sneak in. He did not expect that this problem was actually solved by Su Lingchong, his nemesis. It was simply ridiculous. Yes, it is reasonable to say that a low-level trash like you will not be able to enter such a high-level banquet in your next life. This time, this young master is returning a favor to you on behalf of junior sister Laner. At the same time, I will also let you see clearly the gap between us. How big the gap is, so that you will not be obsessed and entangled. Su Lingchong said disdainfully. With that, Su Lingchong didn't care about Lin Yi's expression and immediately led Kang Xiaoming and the others away with their heads held high. Lin Yi, on the other hand, smiled nonchalantly. He thought about what these people had done today. They'd given him the seeds of the elixir, and now they'd sent him an invitation to the birthday banquet. This was the perfect service. He didn't understand why they were so smug about it. Also, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong used to have this expression every time they sent him spiritual jades. The IQ of the people on Heaven Stage Island was really low. However, it was no wonder that in the cultivation world of Heaven Stage Island, although there was no lack of intrigue, in the final analysis, it was more dependent on strength. Therefore, it was normal that they were certainly not as smart as the people in the secular world. Because these people were generally thinking about how to cultivate. No wonder Kong Mingming could be put in an important position. Such a mean person, Su Lingchong was afraid that it was the first time he had seen such a person. After the interlude, Lin Yi returned to the cave residence and continued to concentrate on refining the foundation-breaking pill. This time, because the elixir materials were extremely abundant in advance, and Lin Yi had the intention to refine more in exchange for spiritual jades, he refined 3 batches in a row in one breath. Fortunately, it was the Shenong medicine cauldron. If it was replaced by other ordinary alchemy cauldrons, it would have exploded because of Lin Yi's desperate efforts. Shenong medicine cauldron had no other abnormal reaction from beginning to end except that the temperature was slightly higher than usual. Everything was normal. After 3 batches, Lin Yi could be said to have a great harvest this time. A total of 13 foundation-breaking pills were refined, and each of them was of the best quality. If these 13 top-grade foundation establishment barrier-breaking pills were all sold to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, even if they were sold at the lowest price of 800 spiritual jades each, they would still be worth at least 10,000 spiritual jades. That would be more than enough for the auction. Plus, he still had the 1,000-year tree crystal and the bag of blood-red gravel in his hands. He couldn't use them for crafting, but he could sell them if he needed to, and he'd be able to earn a huge sum of money in no time. This time, in order to collect the casting materials mentioned by the King of Junk, Lin Yi could be said to have gone all out. If it was in the past, even if Lin Yi was short of spiritual jades, it would be impossible for him to sell so many best quality foundation-breaking pills. After all, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Once this matter reached the ears of someone with ulterior motives, it would easily cause trouble, just like the secret of the star inkstone being exposed. However, this time, Lin Yi had no other choice. According to the King of Junk, if he did not have tens of thousands of spiritual jades, even if he was qualified for the auction, it would be difficult to collect the other 6 materials except for the mysterious water droplet. The worst thing was that once he missed this auction, it would be impossible to collect these materials in a short period of time. Fortunately, after so many dealings, Lin Yi had a better understanding of Hong Zhong's character. This person was not a short-sighted person. Even if he was given a lot of best quality foundation-breaking pills, as long as he was careful not to be discovered by outsiders, it should not be too big of a problem. The next evening, Kang Mingming delivered 4 sets of spiritual medicine seeds as promised. Lin Yi carefully counted them, and after confirming that there were 4 heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds among them, he received them with satisfaction. He transplanted all 4 sets of spiritual medicine seeds into the space of the jade pendant. As long as he took care of them carefully, he would be able to harvest 4 heart-devouring exquisite grass in a few months. In addition to the 2 foundation-building pills he had on hand, it should be enough to support the next 2 breakthroughs. Of course, this was just a silly assumption. After all, after asking Hong Zhong and Chen Heihu to help him purchase the foundation-building pills, together with the 4 heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds, the heart-devouring exquisite grass that he needed in the future was guaranteed to a certain extent. Therefore, for Lin Yi, it was not necessary to keep the 2 foundation-building pills for himself. He could not use them in a short period of time, but in the long run, he did not need to worry about the heart-devouring exquisite grass. Therefore, there was no need for Lin Yi to cling on to these 2 best-quality foundation-building pills. They would be more valuable if he used them elsewhere. In the following period of time, Lin Yi could concentrate on his cultivation without any distractions. Apart from occasionally discussing matters related to casting with the king of junk, there was nothing else to disturb him. Practicing diligently, not caring about stabilizing the strength of the middle stage of foundation-building realm, until he could fully control every bit of strength and every trace of genuine qi in his body, this was what Lin Yi was doing now. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. The birthday banquet of Laner, the first miss of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion, slowly began in the most high-end Huayang house in the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. With the invitation, Lin Yi immediately went to the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. This was the first time that he had entered the core area of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion since he arrived at the Heaven Stage Island, and he did it openly. With the birthday banquet invitation in his hand, he was naturally unimpeded. However, every time he passed through a layer of guards, he would be carefully interrogated. This feeling of being regarded as a thief really made him speechless. There was no other way. After all, he was not an internal member of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion, and he did not have a strong background at first glance. At the entrance of the Huayang house, Su Lingchong, as the organizer of this birthday banquet, stood at the entrance with his hardcore brothers, Lu Tianyu, and others, to welcome the guests. What made Lin Yi quite surprised was that even Kang Mingming was among them. Originally, Kang Mingming's insignificant status was the same as Lin Yi's. He was not qualified to appear in such a high-end occasion, let alone to stand at the entrance and welcome the guests together with Su Lingchong and Lu Tianyu, the young masters of the Sky-Reaching Pavilion. It should be known that the people who entered the birthday banquet today were either the top management of the 3 pavilions or the real power figures of a certain force. Every one of them was a real big boss. Even if they were to welcome the guests, they would at least be at the level of a young master with a strong background. Ordinary people would not have the opportunity to show their faces in front of these big bosses. The fact that Kang Mingming could be among these people could only mean that this guy was really good at flattering. Otherwise, Su Lingchong would not have supported him so much. Chapter 3981. Lin Yi was about to enter when he suddenly felt an overbearing and powerful aura behind him. Turning his head to look, he saw that the person who came into view was the current law enforcement hall master, Ram Jia, whom he had met once before. In this kind of gathering of dignitaries, most people would consciously restrain their aura, lest they accidentally arouse the dissatisfaction of some big shot, which would then cause unnecessary trouble. But the most popular young powerhouse of the 3 great pavilions in front of him did not have the slightest intention of doing so. He did what he wanted and did not care about others. However, even if he did not restrain himself, from beginning to end, no one around him was dissatisfied. Instead, they even took the initiative to nod to him. Among them, there was no lack of elders from the 3 great pavilions. Lin Yi's heart could not help but tremble. Breaking the norm with his own strength, and making everyone around him accustomed to it without any gossip, it could be imagined how strong the strength behind this was. This Ram Jia was really not to be trifled with. Along the way, wherever Ram Jia passed, everyone retreated to make way for him. No one had the guts to block in front of him, until it was Lin Yi's turn. Even without turning his head, Lin Yi could clearly feel that an incomparably cold and overbearing aura was right behind him, very close at hand, only 1 step away. For a moment, all eyes were focused on Lin Yi. Who is this person? He looks unfamiliar. I've never seen him before. Could he be the nephew of one of the elders? Someone in the crowd whispered. To be qualified to attend Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet, he was naturally someone with a powerful background. It was normal for them to guess so. Hey, no matter which family's young master this person is, he dares to block in front of Hall Master Ram. I can only say to him that the ignorant are fearless. Yes, this person probably doesn't even recognize Hall Master Ram. He doesn't even know the taboo. How pitiful. Wherever I go, no one will be able to stop me. These are words personally spoken by Lord Gongyang. Even the upper echelons of the Elder Council will deliberately cooperate with him. This brat is so insensible. He's going to be in big trouble today. The people at the side discussed with schadenfreude, and all of them looked like they were waiting to watch a good show. With Lin Yi's keen senses, although these discussions were intentionally suppressed, he was still able to sense them. But it still couldn't escape his eyes and ears. In a place like this, it wasn't wise to offend a powerful figure like Ram Jia for such an inexplicable small matter. However, just as Lin Yi was about to move aside like everyone else, Su Lingchong, who was in front, suddenly said, "Yo, isn't this the strongest newcomer in the history of Blue Cloud Pavilion?" Lin Yi, it's really an honor for me and little junior sister Lan that you're willing to do us the honor of attending our birthday party. Come, this way please. His words caused an uproar in the audience, including Ram Jia, who was standing behind Lin Yi. They also stopped in their tracks. The strongest newcomer in the history of Blue Cloud Pavilion, isn't that miracle Dr. Dan St. Zhang Liju? Since when was it this bullshit Lin Yi's turn? Yeah, but I heard that this Lin Yi seems to be from the common world like Grandmaster Zhang Liju. It seems like he's someone who came from the common world like Grandmaster Zhang Liju, and he's pretty famous in the pavilion. Bullshit. He's just a grassroots newcomer with some insignificant strength. How can he be so arrogant? Does he think that he can become the next Grandmaster Zhang just by stepping on some dog shit? He's the only one in tens of thousands of years. How can he be so arrogant? Just because of Su Lingchong's words, everyone's voices rose one after another, and they instantly put Lin Yi on the stake. Not only did he become the target of everyone, but he was also in a dilemma. This guy really was evil. Lin Yi couldn't help but look at Su Lingchong deeply. The reason why he suddenly said this was obvious. No matter how bad the people around him were, they were still inner disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion, and each of them had a strong background. Even they might not have the right to attend Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet, and now they suddenly found out that a grassroots newcomer like Lin Yi was able to attend. It would be strange if he didn't become the target of everyone. Other than being talked about and looked down on, there was another problem in front of Lin Yi, and that was Ram Jia who was behind him. If Su Lingchong hadn't said that, Lin Yi would have just stepped aside. After all, it was the same for everyone else. But after Su Lingchong's words of praise and mockery, the situation was completely different. Choosing to step back now was no longer something that could be ignored. It could only mean one thing: in front of Ram Jia, in front of everyone, Lin Yi voluntarily gave up. Lin Yi didn't care, but he was here for Shangguan Laner. If he gave up now, perhaps Shangguan Laner would lose face. Therefore, Lin Yi was in a dilemma. However, if he didn't step back, he was likely to offend the high and mighty law enforcement hall master, Ram Jia, behind him. After all, he once swore that, "No one can stop me wherever I go." Just by looking at his courageous spirit, one could tell what kind of Taoist heart he held. Even the elders of the three pavilions had to tolerate him, let alone a grassroots newcomer like Lin Yi. If he didn't step back, he would offend Ram Jia. If he stepped back, he might make Shangguan Laner lose face. This was Lin Yi's current situation. Today's birthday banquet was indeed a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. He had just arrived and he had already encountered such a difficult problem. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Yi suddenly moved. However, what caused everyone to be in an uproar was that he actually had the guts not to step back. Instead, he walked straight to Su Lingchong and the others, took out the invitation letter and said indifferently, "Young Master Su, can I go in now?" Huh? Su Lingchong was stunned. He had never thought that Lin Yi would have such a reaction. Or rather, he had never thought that Lin Yi would have such guts. If he were in Lin Yi's shoes, even young Master Su, who had a strong background, would not dare to block in front of Ram Jie. What he had said just now was just to make Lin Yi look bad. He had never thought that this guy would be stupid enough to directly make the stupidest choice. It was so stupid that it made people run with joy. In the face of such a pleasant surprise, Su Lingchong naturally couldn't ask for more. He looked at Lu Tianyu and Kong Mingming, then secretly glanced at Ram Jie's expression. Ram Jie looked Lin Yi up and down carefully, which made people look at each other in dismay. The arrogance of the hall master of the law enforcement hall was well known in the North Island. Even if the elders of the three great pavilions were standing opposite him, he did not even bother to look at them. What on earth was Lin Yi capable of making Ram Jie look at him so differently? After a while, Ram Jie spoke slowly, with an unquestionable domineering and strong tone. If it were someone else, they would have been dead by now. Those who dared to block my path are already dead, but you, Lin Yi, can let them off the hook. For a while. The audience was in an uproar again, and even Lin Yi himself was shocked inexplicably. With Ram Jie's arrogance, he never lied. To be precise, he never disdained to lie in front of anyone. If he said he wanted to kill someone, then even if this was Shanghai Laner's birthday party, and even if the masters of the three great pavilions were present, they could not stop him at all. However, he was especially lenient to Lin Yi in public. What was going on? Lin Yi himself was a little confused. He had no friendship with Ram Jie. Why did he make Ram Jie treat him differently? You'd better not misunderstand what I mean. I have an old acquaintance who is indebted to you for taking care of him, so I'm giving him face. As for you, you're nothing more than an ant. You're not even worthy of my attention. Gong Yangjie gave a rare explanation. His disdain for Lin Yi came from the arrogance in his bones. He did not hide it at all, and there was no need to hide it at all. With the current gap in strength between them, Lin Yi was the same as everyone else present. In his eyes, Lin Yi was just an insignificant ant, without the slightest weight, let alone any status to speak of. This feeling of being looked down upon from above, even with Lin Yi's indifferent temperament, gave birth to a rare trace of displeasure, but he did not show it on his face. In that case, I have to thank that friend. Lin Yi smiled calmly. The friend he mentioned was naturally Shanghai Laner. After all, from Ram Jie's words, it was not difficult to infer that he deliberately let him go for the sake of Shanghai Laner. This kind of thing was not surprising. Looking at the whole three pavilions in the North Island, Shanghai Tianhua was the only one who could make Ram Jie bow his head. As the only granddaughter of Shanghai Tianhua, Shanghai Laner naturally had a lot of weight in Ram Jie's eyes. The fact that Shanghai Laner could successfully bring Lin Yi out of the law enforcement hall last time was proof. As for the relationship between Lin Yi and Shang Guanlan, although he had been purposely hiding it from Su Lingchong and the others, if this Gong Yangjie in front of him wanted to know something, there was no way to hide it. As everyone said, in the eyes of the law enforcement hall, there were no secrets, and in the eyes of Ram Jie, the head of the law enforcement hall, it was naturally so. I hope you didn't find the wrong person. When Ram Jie heard this, the corner of his mouth involuntarily raised into a playful smile. Of course, he could guess what Lin Yi was thinking in his heart. Unfortunately, he might give face to Shanghai Tianhua, but how could a little girl like Shanghai Laner have so much face in his eyes? It was ridiculous. However, Ram Jie did not intend to expose him at all. He did not intend to reveal anything to Lin Yi, and he was even more disinclined to talk to such an insignificant ant. Glancing at Ram Jie's expression that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, Lin Yi's heart slightly jolted. But if Ram Jie didn't explain, it was impossible for him to figure out what exactly Ram Jie meant. So, he immediately turned around and said to Su Lingchong, "Now I can finally go in, right, young Master Su?" Su Lingchong's expression was stiff as the corner of his mouth drew back. This time, it was rare for him to be able to make things difficult for Lin Yi in front of everyone, but even if he was beaten to death, he would never have imagined that such a miraculous turn of events would actually occur. Even Ram Jia treated Lin Yi differently. Motherfucker, could it be that this world had gone mad? However, now that even the great god, Ram Jia, had spoken, it was unrealistic for Su Lingchong to want to use this kind of matter to make things difficult for Lin Yi. Otherwise, if he didn't make things difficult for Lin Yi, he would instead arouse Ram Jia's displeasure, and that would be a huge joke. Chapter 3983. Please go ahead. Su Lingchong had to signal Lu Tianyu and the others to let him pass. His eyes were full of mockery. Anyway, the show had just begun. The entire birthday party was arranged by him. It was easy for him to punish Lin Yi. There would be plenty of opportunities later. After letting Lin Yi go in with a sneer, Su Lingchong and the others immediately bowed to Ram Jia, who followed closely behind. His face was full of joy. "Hall leader Ram, please come in." Entering the interior of Huayang House, the originally magnificent hall became even more dreamy and fantasy-like because every place was carefully decorated, as if it were a paradise of immortals. At this moment, although many of the top big shots had not yet appeared, there were many people who had arrived in advance. They exchanged greetings and made friends with each other. Those who could come here today were not ordinary people. Now was the best opportunity to expand their social network. However, Lin Yi obviously did not have this kind of idea. After looking around casually, he did not find Shanghai Laner, the main character of the birthday party. So he found a secluded corner and sat down. He drank the high-grade spirit tea provided for free at the birthday party. He was quite comfortable. Different from Lin Yi, who was ignored, Ram Jia, who followed closely behind, immediately became the focus of the audience. However, because he was too famous and arrogant, everyone in the audience was in awe of him. No one dared to go up and strike up a conversation with him. Looking around, Ram Jia's subsequent action made Lin Yi's eyelids twitch. This person actually walked directly in his direction. Then, without saying anything, he directly sat down on the seat opposite Lin Yi. What did this person want to do? Lin Yi could not help but secretly speculate. However, after the other person sat down, he did not take any further action. He just reclined on the spacious chair lazily and coldly looked at the people and things in the venue at the moment. Lin Yi quietly looked at the other person. Seeing that he did not move, he immediately ignored him and still sat there with his arms crossed. His expression was relaxed and calm. The two of them sat across from each other. Because of Ram Jia, almost everyone in the audience couldn't help but glance at them before silently withdrawing their gazes. If they looked for too long, they were afraid that Ram Jia would be displeased. After a while, Ram Jia suddenly spoke, "What's your relationship with Zhang Liju?" Lin Yi was taken aback for a moment, then replied with his usual expression, "Hall Master Gong Yang must be joking. Master Zhang is the top big shot of Middle Island, and I'm just a grassroots newcomer. How is it possible for you to be related to him?" Unexpectedly, Ram Jia said directly, "You're lying." Lin Yi was speechless. He was indeed lying, but even Zhang Liju himself didn't know about his relationship with Zhang Liju, and he never told anyone about it. How could this Ram Jia know? First, you and Zhang Liju are both from the common world. Second, you and Zhang Liju are both elixir refiners. Third, after coming to Sky Class Island, you've been asking around for information about Zhang Liju many times, and you're saying that it's not a problem? Ram Jia laid on his side with one hand under his chin, looking at Lin Yi from the corner of his eyes. Lin Yi was shocked. He never thought that a mere grassroots newbie like him would be investigated so thoroughly by the high and mighty Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. He was really overwhelmed by the favor. lying in front of me. It's meaningless. Ram Jia didn't know why he was so talkative. He lazily pointed at his head. All the information about the Hall of Law is reflected in my head. If necessary, I can use the soul-searching technique at any time. Do you want to try? Nope. What do you want from me, Hall Master Gong Yang? Just say it. Lin Yi said in a low voice. Haha. Gong Yangjie immediately laughed. Little brat, don't make people laugh anymore. Why would I look for an ant-like newbie like you? It's just to relieve boredom. Don't worry, I'm not bored enough to use the soul-searching technique on you. I'm just curious about your relationship with Zhang Liju. Lin Yi kept quiet for a while and said faintly, I have nothing to do with Master Zhang Liju. If I must say there is, then I'd say that I'm looking for Master Zhang to help me save someone. Save those inheritors in the common world? I didn't know that you were such an affectionate person. It's fine. If you meet Zhang Liju, please pass a message for me. Speaking up to here, Gong Yangjie's eyes suddenly became a bit cold, like a knife scraping across one's skin, causing one's hair to stand on end. Tell him that this king will return the humiliation of that defeat 100-fold. Tell him not to worry, that day will not be too far away. All right. Lin Yi's face didn't change, but his heart was in turmoil. This was the first time he heard that Ram Jia had fought with Zhang Liju before. With Zhang Liju's legendary experience, it was normal for someone as strong as Ram Jia to lose to him. However, what shocked Lin Yi even more was that Ram Jia had the confidence to take revenge against Zhang Liju, who was one of the top bosses in Zhongdao. Just how strong was he? Thinking about it carefully, although Lin Yi couldn't tell how strong or weak Gong Yangjie was, he could tell from the way Gong Yangjie treated the higher-ups of the Elders Guild that this person was definitely not to be underestimated. His strength was probably far above that of a normal elder. A person like this was called the number one in the new generation of the three pavilions. As the two were talking, Lin Yi suddenly saw a few people coming in from the corner of his eye. They were all familiar faces that he didn't want to see the most. The three of them, Yuzhe at the back, followed by Southern Sky Gate, and at the front was a middle-aged man who looked extremely handsome. It was the leader of the three Nan brothers, Nan Tianba. Along the way, Southern Sky Gate whispered, Boss, did you see the kid next to Su Lingchong? That's Kong Mingming. I'm starting to suspect that he's that Lin heir. Yuzhe, who was behind him, followed up, this disciple feels the same way. If Kong Xiaoming didn't give Su Lingchong something as precious as the star ink stone, would Su Lingchong support him so much just because he's just a newbie? Would he even bring him out to welcome guests? Strictly speaking, even an inner disciple like Yuzhe with an ordinary background wasn't qualified to welcome guests at Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet, let alone a mere Kong Mingming. Yuzhe was jealous. Chapter 3984. With Nan Tianba's protective nature, if he could confirm that Kong Mingming was Lin heir, then he would not hesitate to kill Kong Mingming to avenge his third brother, Nan Tianyong. However, it was only a suspicion, and there was no concrete evidence. This matter was not easy to deal with. One had to know that the agreement between them and Su Lingchong was not made by the few of them alone. The fact that the two sides were able to shake hands and make peace was the result of the mutual compromise between the powers behind them. If they acted rashly, not only would they offend the other party, even the powers behind them would be dissatisfied. They would offend both inside and outside. No matter how hot Nan Tianba's temper was, he would not do such a stupid thing. Hearing this, Nan Tianba could only remain silent. He was currently at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm, and the temptation of the star ink stone was greater than anyone else's. However, he was currently in a situation where he could not act even though he had his suspicions. As he spoke, Nan Tianba had already led the way. The direction he was heading towards was where Ram Jia and Lin Yi were. Hallmaster Ram, long time no see. Walking forward, Nan Tianba took the initiative to greet Lin Yi. As for an insignificant person like Lin Yi, he was completely ignored. Ram Jia raised his eyelids and glanced at him. About the proposal from last time, have you thought about it? This matter. I still need to think about it carefully. Nan Tianba hesitated for a moment and glanced at Lin Yi, as if there was a secret that couldn't be revealed to outsiders. He immediately said in a harsh tone, "Who do you think you are? How dare you sit here and disturb the conversation between Hallmaster Ram and me? Hurry up and scram." Lin Yi immediately furrowed his eyebrows. Although Nan Tianba was strong, compared to Ram Jia, there was still a huge gap. Even Ram Jia wasn't this arrogant, so who did Nan Tianba think he was? "I'm sorry, I don't have the habit of giving way to others. If you want to talk with Hallmaster Ram, why don't you consider changing the location?" Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said calmly. "Brat, what did you say?" Nan Tianba's temper immediately flared up. As for Ram Jia, he was still lazily reclining on his chair, looking as if he had nothing to do with this matter. "I'm not interested in repeating myself. If your excellency has a problem with your ears, I suggest that you find a doctor. You might be able to cure it." Lin Yi was still indifferent. No matter how strong the other party was, as long as the other party provoked him, Lin Yi never knew how to retreat. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the courageous will win. A coward would never be able to stand at the pinnacle of experts. "You are courting death." These words were completely squeezed out from the gaps between Nan Tianba's teeth. He never thought that he would be provoked by such a weak ant in front of everyone. Lin Yi's strength in the middle stage of foundation establishment couldn't be hidden from his eyes. In front of an aloof gold core stage expert like him, Lin Yi could only be regarded as a weakling. As his voice fell, Nan Tianba's ferocious aura suddenly rose to the extreme, causing the audience to cry out in alarm. A gold core stage expert was no small matter. However, what was even more surprising was that there was still someone who dared to make a move on such an occasion. "This is Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet. Before your excellency makes a move, it's best to think about the consequences first," Lin Yi calmly said. If the other party was Ram Jia, perhaps it was really possible for him to make a move here without any scruples. However, if it was someone else, even if it was a fierce character like Nan Tianba, they might not have the guts to do so. Making a move here. It was equivalent to smashing Shangguan Laner's place. Even more so, it was equivalent to smashing Shangguan Tianhua's place. Not just anyone could have this kind of confidence. In front of a super big shot like Shangguan Tianhua, a gold core stage expert was just an ant. Moreover, intuition told Lin Yi that Nan Tianba wasn't as hot-tempered and brainless as he looked on the surface. He wouldn't do something so stupid as to put himself in danger just to teach a small character like him a lesson. Sure enough, Nan Tianba's aura suddenly stagnated. He coldly looked down at Lin Yi and said, "Brat, you have guts. What's your name?" Without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha had already moved forward and whispered a few words into his ear. Not only did they know Lin Yi's identity and name, they even told Lin Yi their previous test. To be honest, seeing Lin Yi in a place like this, especially when Lin Yi was sitting so openly in front of Ram Jia, Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha couldn't react at all. Even if they recognized him at first glance, they still couldn't believe it. It wasn't until now that they could finally confirm that this guy was the newcomer from Blue Cloud Pavilion that they had suspected before. Heh, what kind of world is this? Even a mere newcomer from Blue Cloud Pavilion can sneak into this place. Or could it be that you simply took advantage of the fact that the guards were lax to sneak in? Nan Tianba sneered as he listened to the whole story. "I heard that for Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet this time, half of the guards are elites transferred from the Hall of Law Enforcement at the last minute. You're insulting their abilities in front of the Hall Master, isn't that appropriate?" Lin Yi's face was as calm as ever. Nan Tianba's expression couldn't help but change. After hearing Lin Yi's words, he felt like he was indirectly scolding the locust tree. At this moment, Yuzha, who was behind them, suddenly spoke up, "Eldest martial uncle, second martial uncle, disciple's master died mysteriously. This Lin Yi is one of the suspects. Martial uncles, please help disciple find out the truth and let master's soul rest in peace. His sudden interruption was naturally to give Nan Tianba a way out. At the same time, it also didn't dispel their suspicions towards Lin Yi. Although their focus was currently on Kong Ming, they didn't dare to act rashly because of Su Lingchong. Now that Lin Yi, the second suspect, had bumped into the muzzle, they obviously couldn't let go of this opportunity. Unknowingly, Yuzha had always felt that Lin Yi's temperament was very similar to Lin Er's. As a cultivator, his strong intuition was very accurate most of the time. As soon as these words came out, Nan Tianba's eyes suddenly lit up. He secretly gave Yuzhou a look of praise and immediately said righteously, when third brother Nan Tianyong died, the higher-ups of the three great pavilions clearly stated that they would investigate this matter. However, there hasn't been any progress. Taking advantage of today's opportunity, Hall Master Gong Yang might as well investigate this Lin Yi. With your ability, if you want to find out anything, it should be very simple. Chapter 3985. However, for Lin Yi, once the soul-searching technique was used, it would be equivalent to a disaster. No one could save him in this situation, not even Shanghai Laner. Although Shanghai Laner was a young miss, once it involved the powerful people present, her words might not be that effective, unless her grandfather, Shanghai Tianhua, personally came forward. However, as the dignified pavilion master of Soaring Sky Pavilion, how could Shanghai Tianhua stand up for Lin Yi, and nobody from Blue Cloud Pavilion? If it really didn't work, they could only try to create chaos and escape. Compared to being discovered by the soul-searching technique, this would give them a slim chance of survival. At this moment, a familiar girl's voice suddenly sounded from behind them. Lin Yi is this lady's savior, who dares to use the soul-searching technique on him? Following the appearance of the person, everyone's eyes instantly focused on her. Even a legendary figure like Ram Jia was only slightly inferior. The person who came was the main character of this birthday banquet, Shanghai Laner. Lin Yi's heart immediately relaxed. As long as the soul-searching technique was not used, Shanghai Laner came forward to help him, so it would still be effective. Even if Nan Tianba and the others wanted to punish him, they probably wouldn't dare to go against the will of this young miss on this day. However, the reaction of Nan Tianba and the others was beyond Lin Yi's expectations. Young Miss Shangwan, even if this Lin Yi is your savior, he could also be the real murderer who killed this seat's third brother. There is no conflict between the two. Pavilion Master Shangwan had personally ordered for this matter to be investigated. Does young miss want to let your grandfather's order become empty words? Nan Tianba said forcefully. After joining hands with Su Yuanzheng, who was behind Su Lingchong, their side was already very clear. Since the background had nothing to do with Shanghai Tianhua, then there was naturally no need to care too much about a little girl like Shanghai Laner. This Lin Yi. In a hurry, Shanghai Laner didn't know what to say. Shanghai Laner could only helplessly look at Lin Yi. She wanted to help Lin Yi out of this predicament, but this place was not like the ordinary law enforcers she had faced in the law enforcement hall last time. Instead, it was Nan Tianba, who had an extraordinary status. If he could not stand on his feet, then even she, the eldest daughter of the Shangwan family, would be helpless. Although she sometimes behaved like a willful and ignorant little girl, when it came to important matters related to her grandfather, Shangwan Tianhua, she would never take it lightly. At this time, if she said something wrong, it could be used as a pretext by others, which would affect her grandfather's image and status. This kind of thing had happened a lot in the past. Lin Yi gently shook his head at Shanghai Laner. He signaled her not to say too much. After all, she was still a little girl. At this time, the more she said, the more mistakes she would make. Instead of being bullied by the other side, it was better to wait and see. Seeing that Shanghai Laner was choked by his words, Nan Tianba and the others couldn't help but look at each other with a smile. Then, he said to Ram Jia, Hall Master Ram, you are the #1 person in charge of the three great pavilions' punishment. Right now, the real suspect, Lin Yi, is right in front of you. If you just ignore him like this, I feel that it is quite inappropriate. What do you say? With just a few words, the situation was completely under Nan Tianba's control. It could be seen that this guy was not as rough as he looked on the surface, and that fiery and brainless. Lin Yi could only secretly be on guard. Things had suddenly developed to this point, and even if Shanghai Laner personally came forward, she still wouldn't be able to help him out of this predicament. It was really a bit difficult to get off the tiger. Right now, he could only take one step at a time. However, at this time, Ram Jia glanced at Nan Tianba. He said indifferently, "Nan Tianba, when did it become your turn to teach me what I need to do?" With just one simple sentence, Nan Tianba and the others, who were originally complacent, suddenly had their faces collapse. They were so numb that they were confused by this arrogant brat that they forgot that Ram Jia wasn't someone they could casually order around. If they really pointed fingers at Ram Jia and violated Ram Jia's taboo, Lin Yi would probably be fine. Instead, they would be the ones facing a disaster. Moreover, the reason why Nan Tianba's case didn't make any progress at all was actually the result of Ram Jia's incitement. He felt that this case wasn't important, so no one would investigate it. Naturally, there wouldn't be any results. Therefore, when Nan Tianba's words fell into Ram Jia's ears, it was the same as reprimanding him for not doing his job. With Ram Jia's arrogance, it would be strange if he nodded his head. No. Nan Tianba hurriedly tried to explain. However, before he could explain, Ram Jia suddenly stood up without any warning. An incomparably majestic and overbearing aura instantly pressed down on top of his head. Nan Tianba was caught off guard. His knees went soft and he almost knelt down in front of everyone. He forcefully clenched his teeth and supported his body. However, Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha, who were behind him, didn't have this kind of strength. With a put-on sound, their knees hit the floor and they spat out blood. No? Is it your fault, or is it my fault? Ram Jia coldly glanced at him, then said meaningfully, "This is just a small warning for you. I don't have that much patience, and I'm too lazy to care about this bullshit. As for the question I asked you before, give me an answer within 3 days. Otherwise, you should be very clear about the consequences." After saying this, Ram Jia stood up and left, leaving the crowd with an unruly and domineering back. This person was truly extraordinary. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but admire him. To be honest, a man as tyrannical and arrogant as Ram Jia was rarely seen in this world. However, what made Lin Yi even more curious was the matter between Ram Jia and Nan Tianba. In such a short period of time, it seemed like this was the second time he had mentioned it. "Hee, this time you've kicked an iron plate on the cold-faced ghost. Serves you right." Shanghai Laner rejoiced in their misfortune. As for the little curly bear that came along with her and was currently hanging on Lin Yi's neck, it swaggered its claws at Nan Tianba and the others. Nan Tianba's face turned ashen from anger, but he couldn't do anything. He could only let out a cold snort and silently pulled Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha up from the ground. After all, this was Shangguan Laner's birthday banquet. Because he was the one in the right, he couldn't be blamed for not giving this missy any face. However, if he dared to throw a tantrum now, it would be too much. If this matter were to fall into Shangguan Tianhua's ears, he would definitely suffer the consequences. Chapter 3986. Lin Yi took a deep look at Nan Tianba and the others, then turned around and followed Shanghai Laner. Although these people were intimidated by Ram Jia, if he continued to stay here, these people might take the risk out of desperation. Nan Tianba had once told Lin Yi that he also knew the soul-searching technique. Although his realm wasn't as high as Ram Jia's, even if it was the most basic soul-searching technique, he still had to be careful. Before he had enough strength, Lin Yi felt that it was better to have less contact with these people. Watching Lin Yi and Shanghai Laner leave, Nan Tianba's eyes couldn't help but spit fire. To be honest, they didn't really suspect Lin Yi. It was just that Nan Tianba didn't like Lin Yi, so he used it as a pretext to make a fuss. After all, they had tried to investigate Lin Yi several times before, but to no avail. Therefore, even if Lin Yi still had flaws, their thinking had inevitably fallen into the wrong zone. Especially when Lin Yi pushed the boat with the current and shifted the biggest suspicion onto Kang Mingming. At least before they investigated Kang Mingming, they wouldn't turn around and suspect Lin Yi. This time, it could only be said that Lin Yi's luck wasn't good. Sitting together with a prominent person like Ram Jia had inexplicably provoked Nan Tianba's dissatisfaction, which was why he encountered this unexpected crisis. Following Shanghai Laner, they went to the third floor. This was the lounge that Hua Yang Restaurant had prepared for this young miss. Aside from the outside being heavily guarded, there weren't any unnecessary people in the room. For Lin Yi, this could save him a lot of unnecessary trouble. After asking Lin Yi to sit down, Shang Guanlan reminded him seriously, "Little junior brother, that ugly black-faced guy just now, although he can't be compared with a pervert like Cold-Faced Ghost, he is still very powerful. Don't underestimate him." My grandfather once privately commented on the new generation of the 3 pavilions, and this guy is ranked in the top 10 troublesome people. So, little disciple, if you meet this person in the future, it's better to stay away. Top 10 of the new generation of the 3 pavilions? Thank you for the reminder, little disciple sister. I'll remember it. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. When mentioning the new generation of the 3 pavilions, the first person that came to mind would be the head of the law enforcement hall, Ram Jia. Anyone else in front of him would pale in comparison. But this didn't mean that the other new generation masters weren't strong. Gong Yangjia was a rare exception. His target was a legend like Zhang Liju, and the other new generation masters were nothing to scoff at. As for the other new generation of the 3 pavilions, they were still the future pillars of the 3 pavilions. Whether it was status or strength, no ordinary person could shake them. Shangguan Tianhua was the pavilion master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Even if it was a private evaluation that was never made public, its credibility and authenticity were not inferior to the authority of the 3 great pavilions. For Nan Tianba to be able to be ranked in the top 10, it could be seen that he was not a simple character. At least up until now, Lin Yi was just an ant that couldn't even be stepped on. If he wanted to have the strength to deal with a threat like this, then he would need to do so. You're still a newcomer. There's still a long way to go. But little disciple brother, you don't have to be too afraid. You're still a newcomer. Unless you meet that ugly big black-face monster alone outside, he won't dare to come looking for trouble. Shanghai Laner comforted him with a smile. The protection of the new generation of the 3 pavilions wasn't just for show. Although in terms of influence and power, the Welcome Pavilion was ranked last among the big pavilions. As long as they stayed within the territory of the Welcome Pavilion, no one would dare to touch these newcomers. Even Nan Tianba was no exception. Unless he wanted to be wanted by the Elders Guild. Yes, I know. Lin Yi nodded, but didn't comment on this. Normally, as a newcomer, as long as he stayed in the Welcome Pavilion, he would be able to sleep peacefully. But this was on the premise that no one would be able to find a loophole. Otherwise, people would always be able to find a loophole. To forge iron, one had to be strong. In the end, only when one's own strength was truly strong would they be able to sleep peacefully. Of course, there was no need to explain these concerns to Shanghai Laner. Lin Yi immediately took out an exquisite spirit jade box from his bosom. This was what he had carefully selected at the Hong Chamber of Commerce last time. He handed it to Shanghai Laner and said, "Little senior sister, this is a small token of my appreciation. I wish you a happy birthday." Wow, what a beautiful box. Shanghai Laner's eyes lit up. She was pleasantly surprised and said, "This is the texture of high-grade spirit jades. The carving technique is also very good. It should be a master-level craftsmanship. Senior sister, I wanted such a treasure box." "Thank you, little junior brother, I like it very much. Seeing Shanghai Laner's fondness for the box, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. This spirit jade box had indeed cost him a lot of spirit jades, but how could his gift be just a box? The spirit jade box was just a foil. What was inside was the real gift. Little senior sister, why don't you open it and take a look? Lin Yi smiled and pointed at the box. Shanghai Laner was slightly stunned. In her opinion, with Lin Yi's qualifications as a newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, it was already very rare and very thoughtful for him to give her such an exquisite spirit jade box. She was quite touched. However, from what Lin Yi said, could it be that there was something else inside? Shanghai Laner adjusted her breathing. With the mood of witnessing the surprise, she wanted to slowly open the spirit jade box. However, she didn't expect that before she could open it, the little curly bear next to her had already snatched the spirit jade box from her hand. Shanghai Laner suddenly let out a soft cry and hurriedly wanted to snatch it back. At this moment, Su Lingchong happened to walk to the door of the room and happened to hear Shanghai Laner's soft cry. He hurriedly kicked the door open and said anxiously, "Little junior sister, what's wrong?" Only then did Shanghai Laner recover from her shock. She couldn't be bothered to chase after the little curly bear anymore. She covered her mouth and stuck out her tongue. Pretending to be calm, she said, "What's wrong?" "There's nothing wrong here. Senior brother Su, don't you think it's improper for you to barge into this lady's room?" Su Lingchong suspiciously looked at the two of them. He had just heard the servant say that Shanghai Laner had personally brought Lin Yi up to the 3rd floor. A man and a woman were alone in a room. He was afraid that there would be some scandal, so he hurriedly chased after them. In the end, he saw the situation in front of him. Lin Yi didn't seem to be abnormal. He still had a calm and pretentious demeanor. However, Shanghai Laner, this young lady, was somewhat abnormal. Chapter 3987. All of this was truly too easy to cause one's imagination to run wild. Especially since Su Lingchong's first impression was that this kid, Lin Yi, had always wanted to be a toad that wanted to eat swan meat, and it was rare for him to have a chance to be alone in a room with Shanghai Laner. Could it be that this beast would easily let it go? In Su Lingchong's mind, the scene from earlier was quickly restored to another scene as a matter of course, and that was Lin Yi, this bastard, taking advantage of the fact that Shanghai Laner wasn't paying attention and had secretly kissed Shanghai Laner forcefully. When he thought up to here, Su Lingchong instantly felt inconsolable. Motherfucker. I've chased after this little girl for so many years, yet I haven't even been able to hold her hand once. In the end, I actually allowed Lin Yi, this grassroot that's pretending to be pretentious, to seize the initiative. This sort of thing is intolerable. Shanghai Laner had always been Su Lingchong's woman, and it was related to his great cause in the future. No one was allowed to encroach upon her, and if anyone dared to touch even a strand of hair on her, then it would be an irreconcilable enmity with him, young Master Su. So, when he'd just noticed a tiny sign earlier, Su Lingchong had thought of ways to destroy the relationship between Shanghai Laner and Lin Yi, and he wanted to nip this practically impossible possibility in the bud. He originally thought that he could already sit back and relax, yet he never imagined that such a thing would actually occur right under his eyes. Even though he and Shanghai Laner hadn't established any status yet, under the tacit consent of the parents of both parties, Su Lingchong had long since taken Shanghai Laner to be his woman. Presently, in this sort of situation, was it any different from being made a cuckold by Lin Yi? Lin Yi, this young master will make living worse than death for you. Instantly, Su Lingchong was actually stimulated by his own guess to the point of losing control of his emotions, and his eyes were completely red as he wanted to make a move against Lin Yi. In fact, he had not completely lost his mind. As long as he revealed the fact that Lin Yi had violated and molested Shanghai Laner, even if he were to crush Lin Yi's bones and scatter his ashes on the spot, he would not need to take any responsibility. Lin Yi was shocked. He didn't have the time to think about why this guy suddenly went berserk. He quickly pulled Shanghai Laner and wanted to retreat. After all, his opponent was a well-established expert in the great perfection of the building foundation stage, and Lin Yi himself was only in the middle stage of the building foundation stage. If he did not use his trump card, the super true chi bomb, he would certainly be overwhelmed if he fought the opponent recklessly. However, Sheng Wanlan, was one step ahead of him. She stood in front of him and shouted at Su Lingchong, "What do you want to do? Little junior brother is my important guest. If you dare to attack him, I will kill him. If you dare to make a move against him, I'll go tell Grandpa." Su Lingchong's figure paused, and he looked past Shanghai Laner to look at Lin Yi. Immediately after, his gaze became even more sinister, and he said half-mockingly and half-mockingly, "Junior sister Lan, if he is your important guest, then what am I?" Unexpectedly, Shanghai Laner's big missy temper flared up, and she didn't give him the slightest bit of face as she said, "What does the matter between this young lady and junior brother have to do with you? Do I need to explain it to an outsider like you?" Hearing this, Su Lingchong couldn't help but laugh out of extreme anger, and he nervously pointed at Lin Yi, then pointed at himself. He sneered and said, "I'm an outsider, and you and this grassroots slut are on the same side? Good, very good, well said. Who are you calling a grassroots slut? I'll give you a chance. Quickly apologize to my junior brother." Shanghai Laner was instantly enraged as well. She didn't have many friends in the first place, and after experiencing all sorts of things before. In her heart, Lin Yi's position was already far from what an ordinary friend could compare to, and as for a hateful person like Su Lingchong, he couldn't even be considered as a friend in her eyes. Her standpoint could be said to be clear at a glance. Unexpectedly, Su Lingchong suddenly changed his expression into a cold and indifferent one, and he said coldly, "All the important figures downstairs have already arrived. Junior sister Lan, if you have nothing to do with this grassroots slut, then you should go down as soon as possible. Don't let so many important figures wait for too long." Looking at Su Lingchong's back figure that turned around and left, Shanghai Laner's beautiful face instantly flushed red with anger. Previously, she cooperated with Lin Yi's act and said that she hated Lin Yi, but that hateful person like Su Lingchong actually dared to insult Lin Yi in front of her, and that was unforgivable. But unfortunately, the other party was after all one of the few young masters in the Soaring Sky Pavilion, and now he was even the senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Even she, the eldest miss of the Shengguan family, couldn't do anything to Su Lingchong, and it wasn't easy to help Lin Yi vent his anger. "Junior sister, I'm sorry, I've caused trouble for you," Lin Yi said with a sigh behind her. "How could it be? Junior brother, don't think too much. I, your senior sister, originally wanted to fall out with this hateful person, but because of my grandfather's feelings, I didn't say it out loud. Today is also good, so that he won't come and bother me for no reason in the future." Shanghai Laner quickly explained and comforted him. Lin Yi secretly shook his head. Su Lingchong didn't seem like a person who would give up so easily. For a young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion like him, the attraction of Shanghai Laner to him was definitely not as simple as a woman's beauty. Even if Shanghai Laner openly fell out with him, he wouldn't just let go. To be precise, the family force behind him wouldn't allow him to just let go like this. In this kind of situation, if Su Lingchong continued to lose control of his emotions and went berserk, perhaps it would be easier to deal with him. After all, the surroundings were heavily guarded. If this guy was only coming for him, Lin Yi believed that he would be able to hold on until the guards came to rescue him. At that time, it wouldn't be easy for Su Lingchong to clean up the mess. On the contrary, looking at the current situation, Su Lingchong seemed to have lost control of his emotions, but in the end, he quickly regained his composure. This was even more terrifying, and it was enough to prove that this young Master Su's shrewdness was far from that of an ordinary person. The calmness in front of him was precisely the precursor of a storm. "Junior sister, I think you might have to be a little more careful. In the future, when you come into contact with Su Lingchong, it's best to be more vigilant," Lin Yi reminded. After today's incident, he, Lin Yi, would definitely be the main target of Su Lingchong's revenge. However, Shanghai Laner, this young miss, even if she had the protection of her grandfather, Shanghai Tianhua, she might not necessarily be able to sleep peacefully. Once she relaxed even a little, this scheming young master Su might take the risk out of desperation. Shanghai Laner was stunned, then she waved her fist and bared her two little canine teeth. This lady isn't afraid of him. If he dares to have any crooked thoughts, this lady will cut him up. On the other hand, the little curly bear at the side very cooperatively sat down and made a cutting motion, causing Lin Yi to involuntarily perspire with shame. He hadn't seen it before, but this master and pet pair were really fierce enough. Chapter 3988. After all, even if they were open-minded, they couldn't stop others from thinking the wrong way. If Shangguan Laner's reputation was affected because of this, there would be endless troubles in the future. When they came to the first floor, as Su Lingchong said, the hall of Huayang restaurant was already full of distinguished guests. Although everyone deliberately restrained their momentum, Lin Yi could still feel that no one present was ordinary. Especially those big shots who were qualified to sit on the main seat, each of them was as deep as the abyss, as if they were sacred. In front of them, Lin Yi could only have a feeling that he was looking up at a high mountain. Among these big shots, there were many faces that Lin Yi had seen before, such as Su Yuanzheng, the third elder of Towering Pavilion, Zhao Hongba, the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion, the bald elder who guarded the back mountain hall, and Ram Jia, whom he had dealt with before, were also among them. Lin Yi even saw an old acquaintance among them, Hong Zhong of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. This was quite out of Lin Yi's expectation, but after thinking about it, it was reasonable. As the full agent of the Hong Chamber of Commerce in the North Island, it was natural for Hong Zhong to be close to the top management of the three pavilions. What's more, no matter his identity or status, he was not under the elders of the three pavilions, so he was naturally qualified to occupy a main seat. However, although Lin Yi was an acquaintance of him, he made friends with him as Lin too. Now, Lin Yi appeared in person, so Hong Zhong might not be able to recognize him. With the appearance of Shanghai Laner, the people who were still greeting each other instantly focused their eyes on the protagonist of today's birthday party. They all smiled, and there was a bit of amazement in their eyes. As the protagonist, Shanghai Laner's dress was no different from usual today. She did not deliberately dress up, nor did she deliberately decorate herself, but even so, it was still difficult to conceal her natural beauty. Under the deliberately created dreamy atmosphere of the audience. Under the deliberately created dreamy atmosphere, she was like a fairy descending to the world, dazzling and dazzling. However, while everyone's eyes were focused on Shanghai Laner, there were still many people who noticed Lin Yi who came down from behind her. After a slight daze, there was a burst of whispers. As for Lin Yi, who was a complete stranger to them, apart from old acquaintances like Su Lingchong and the Southern Sky Gate, the others were completely clueless. Suddenly seeing him appear together with Miss Shangguan, of course there were all sorts of guesses and discussions going on in private. At this moment, Shangguan Tianhua, who was sitting on the main seat in the middle, waved at Laner in a half-doting and half-scolding manner. "Little Lon, why don't you quickly come over and greet all the grandpas and uncles? You've made so many elders wait for you. You've really gained a lot of face today. Little junior brother, find a place to sit down first. I'll look for you later." Shangguan Laner turned her head and whispered to Lin Yi. Then, she brought the little curly bear with her. She excitedly trotted over to him. When Su Lingchong saw this scene from afar, he couldn't help but be infuriated to the point that he was burning with rage. After seeing every little action of Shanghai Laner and Lin Yi, he felt that the two of them were doing something sneaky, which was intolerable. To think that I thought this little girl was pure and cute, pure and inviolable. I didn't expect her to be such a slut with a unique taste. I'm really fucking blind. Su Lingchong fiercely spat on the ground. A bold plan quietly took shape in his mind. No matter what the reason was, he could not let Shanghai Laner escape from his palm. Absolutely not. For this, he would not hesitate to use any means and take a little risk. Currently, the great hall was filled with a joyous and harmonious atmosphere. Even though there were some irreconcilable grudges between the various major figures present, none of them could reveal any of it. At the very least, in front of everyone, they had to temporarily force themselves to smile. After all, they had to give face to a super big shot like Shangguan Tianhua, and they had no choice but to give him face. In the birthday banquet, other than letting the many big shots gather together to exchange greetings and build up their friendship, there was also an indispensable highlight according to the usual practice. Today was no exception under Su Lingchong's arrangement, and that was to present gifts to the main character of the birthday banquet, Shanghai Laner. According to the status and strength of each other, everyone present gave gifts to Shanghai Laner in succession. This was not only to express their sincerity, but at the same time, it was also the best opportunity to show off their respective strengths. Inevitably, the birthday banquet would eventually more or less degenerate into a grand gathering for everyone to compare. The rarer and more precious gifts in hand represented the greater power of the person. In the future, their position in the eyes of many big shots would naturally be higher. As for those slightly shabby and ordinary gifts, they could not be taken out at all. Even if they were taken out, they would only make a fool of themselves. But this time, under Su Lingchong's deliberate arrangement, not only did they need to give gifts in front of everyone, but they even specially rented 3 appraisal experts from the major chambers of commerce to comment on each gift in public. To put it nicely, it was a birthday appraisal meeting. In this way, the atmosphere of competition at the scene was much stronger than before. After listening to Su Lingchong's announcement, the expressions on everyone's faces were either happy or sad, which could be described as wonderful. The top big shots of the North Island were gathered together, and this was an extremely rare opportunity. Everyone wanted to stand out on such an occasion and leave a deep impression on the many big shots, yet no one wanted to lose face at such a time. Once they left behind a stingy evaluation, then they would complain incessantly. If they knew there was such a segment earlier, then it was reckoned that everyone present would absolutely spare no effort to present the best rare and precious treasures. If they were able to leave a good impression on the many big shots, then it wouldn't be a loss no matter how much they spent. But unfortunately, when Su Lingchong sent the invitations to them, he'd done something in the process and treated them differently. Those who had a close relationship with the Su clan received a reminder at the same time they received the invitation, whereas those who didn't have a good relationship with the Su clan or even had a bad relationship with the Su clan were completely unaware of this. It was even to the extent that they were deliberately misled to think that the birthday banquet this time was just a formality, and there was utterly no need to take the trouble to prepare any precious gifts. Thus, those who received the reminder could show their faces and stand out, whereas those who were deliberately misled would truly be in a tragedy this time. They could only wait in perturbed torment as they waited for themselves to become the laughingstock of everyone present. Chapter 3989. In a sense, neglecting this birthday banquet was equivalent to neglecting the Shangguan First Young Miss, and neglecting the Shangguan First Young Miss was equivalent to neglecting the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Shangguan Tianhua. The dangers involved were not something that could be described clearly with just a few words. Chonger, you did well today. In the future, when the Su family is in your hands, I can be a little more at ease. In the process of presenting the gift, Su Yuanjing deliberately got up and walked to the side, nodding approvingly at his grandson. In his view, although Su Lingchong's little tricks were still considered immature, as long as he had this awareness, he would not be too far away from supporting the future of the Su family. Thank you for your praise, grandfather. I will definitely continue to work hard to protect the future of the Su family. Su Lingchong was immediately overjoyed by the praise. Taking over the Su family had always been his long-cherished wish. Today, he was able to obtain the approval of his grandfather, Su Yuanjing, which proved that he was a big step closer to this goal. Su Yuanjing laughed happily and said, however, Chonger, you must firmly remember that schemes are only a small way. If you want to take charge of big things, you must grasp the key people. Otherwise, no matter how hard you work, it will be in vain." After saying that, the old man pointed at Laner, who was intimately snuggling up to Shengguan Tianhua. Su Lingchong nodded and clenched his fists meaningfully. "Grandfather, don't worry. She will definitely not escape from the palm of your grandson's hand." "Definitely not. It's great that you have this confidence. Don't let grandfather down." Su Yuanjing patted him on the shoulder and turned back to the main seat. Su Lingchong took a deep breath. When he looked at Laner in the distance again, there was a hint of coldness and cruelty in his eyes. If it was before today. If Laner still had a goddess-like position in his heart, then after what had happened just now, this goddess had quickly degraded into a slut who could be used by anyone. And if it was just to deal with such a slut, there was naturally no need to be too polite. At this time, the gift-giving session was coming to an end. Kang Mingming said eagerly, "Young Master Su, can I take out my gift now?" Su Lingchong nodded slightly. This was the plan that he had discussed with Kang Mingming in advance. He immediately came forward and introduced on her behalf, "Dear elders and friends, next is to present the birthday gift to junior sister Lan, He is the new deacon from our welcome pavilion, Kang Mingming." Kang Mingming quickly raised his head and puffed out his chest, pretending to be calm as he slowly opened the wooden box in his hand. There was an elixir carefully placed inside. Everyone present couldn't help but discuss spiritedly. For a newcomer to appear in the welcoming pavilion, to appear here was already a piece of news that was neither big nor small. Moreover, this newcomer had taken out a pretty good gift, a high-grade foundation building pill. This junior brother Kong, after hearing that he was fortunate to be able to attend junior sister Lan's birthday party, under my help and supervision, he finally refined this high-grade foundation building pill by himself for 10 days and 10 nights. It will be a birthday gift to junior sister Lan. Su Lingchong spoke frankly with assurance, personally fighting for Kang Mingming's reputation. When everyone heard this, they obviously paid more attention to Kang Mingming. A mere newcomer from the welcome pavilion naturally wouldn't be able to enter their eyes. But if this newcomer was an alchemist and could personally refine a high-quality foundation building pill, then his value would be huge. One should know that even in the alchemy hall where alchemists gathered, there were not many alchemists who could refine foundation building pill, and those with high quality could be counted on one's fingers. Looking at it from this point of view, this new alchemist named Kang Xiaoming could almost jump into the ranks of the elite alchemists with his skills alone. Even Lin Yi, who knew Kang Mingming very well, was quite surprised at this moment. At this moment, he could not help but be surprised. If what Su Lingchong said was true, then he had really underestimated this guy in the past. With his current strength at the early stage of foundation establishment, being able to concoct a high-quality foundation establishment pill meant that this guy had some talent in the field of alchemy. Everyone present was extraordinary. This feeling of being appreciated by everyone simply made Kang Mingming feel like he was walking on air. He was so happy that he almost couldn't extricate himself. However, he still remembered the instructions given to him by Su Lingchong in advance. He immediately stood up and bowed. "Young Master Su is overpraising me. As a newcomer in the Soaring Sky Pavilion, I'm doing my best for Miss Shengguan. This is all within my duty and I don't deserve such praise." These words of Kang Mingming could be said to be humble and appropriate. It made all the big shots present praise him incessantly. They secretly thought that if this guy was trained in the future, he might be able to achieve great things. After gaining enough limelight, Kang Mingming suddenly changed the topic and turned to Lin Yi's direction. "Newcomer Lin, the newcomer of the welcoming pavilion, is here today. You and I, it's rare for us to have the opportunity to attend Miss Shengguan's birthday banquet. You should also show your appreciation. I know that you've always been amazing. Today, you can't embarrass our welcoming pavilion. Why don't you take out any gifts to let everyone have a good look?" The people present were all smart people. The intention revealed by Kang Mingming's words fell into their eyes. They immediately revealed a look of watching a good show. Anyway, it had nothing to do with them. No matter who was embarrassed, it was none of their business. However, Lin Yi shook his head lightly. I'm sorry, I've already given my gift to Miss Shangguan in private. Kang Mingming was slightly stunned. Su Lingchong, who was next to him, chuckled and said, You gave it to junior sister Lan, in private? Everyone present gave gifts together. You're just a newcomer, why do you have to be special? I heard that you're an alchemist like junior brother Kang. What gift did you give? Why not take it out and let everyone evaluate it? After all, there's competition to improve. Su Lingchong's dignified words immediately forced Lin Yi into a corner where he couldn't refuse. Everyone's eyes then shifted to Shanghai Laner. Shanghai Laner secretly thought that something was wrong. Because she was interrupted by the little curly bear just now, she hadn't opened the gift in the spiritual jade box. But even so, she could guess that with Lin Yi's humble background as a new disciple of Clear Cloud Pavilion, it was basically impossible for him to give a gift better than a high-grade foundation building pellet. If he agreed just like that, then this little junior brother of hers would lose out to that annoying subordinate of his. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.